Part 43. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 427. The next day, early morning. After a whole night of conditioning, Musian was full of energy and got out of bed with a relaxed mood. The bed was shaking until the middle of the night last night. Fortunately, the sound insulation of this place was obviously good, and Byruoxi also deliberately suppressed the sound, otherwise it would probably cause a lot of trouble. We are obviously an old couple, but Ruoxi is still shy. Musian sighed secretly, picked up the map drawn by Byruoxi last night and left the room. Wei Mengru had been waiting outside the cave for a long time. Beside her was the queen of the demon world, who was wearing plain clothes and plain skirts, but still charming and attractive. Byruoxi also left the cave early in the morning and waited outside. The palace skirt beauty's face, which was weak and cold in the past, now showed a healthy ruddy look. The black and white palace skirt further highlighted the beauty of her icy skin and jade bones. Wei Mengru looked at Byruoxi suspiciously, staring at her jade neck. Sister Mengru, what's wrong? Byruoxi felt a little uncomfortable being stared at, and stole a glance at Wei Mengru. Although everyone knew about her relationship with Musian, but going out, especially going to her mother's house, and secretly being intimate with Musian during the break on the way, if Wei Mengru knew about it, it would inevitably make people think that Miss Bai was an unsatisfied woman. But she didn't think about those things at all last night. It was all Mulang's fault. There seems to be a strange red mark on the right side of your neck. Wei Mengru stared at Byruoxi's swan-like jade neck with suspicion. There seemed to be a red mark on the right side near the collarbone. The queen of the demon realm narrowed her eyes, stretched out her slender knuckles and gently touched the red mark on Byruoxi's jade neck. Really? If I remember correctly, I didn't seem to find this mark when I set out a few days ago. Could it be left yesterday? A trace of panic flashed across Byruoxi's beautiful eyes. She covered the red mark and said softly, maybe it was because there were too many mosquitoes in the forest yesterday, so I was accidentally bitten by some insect. Seeing that the two were still suspicious, Byruoxi suddenly said, Mulang came out. It stands to reason that he is in the realm of refining spirits, so he shouldn't have slept for so long. Wei Mengru suddenly said softly. The queen of the demon realm nodded silently. A trace of doubt flashed across her charming eyes, looking at Musian, who was riding a dragon bird towards this open space in front of her, and then inadvertently glanced at Byruoxi beside her, and soon there was a hint of playful smile in her eyes. At this time, Musian had already come to the three people on his dragon bird and said with a smile, sorry, I got some insights from meditation last night, so I got up late this morning. As he said that, he glanced at Byruoxi inconspicuously. Well, Ruoxi looks good, and the spiritual energy of the cauldron is more solid. It's worth my hard work last night. He noticed a strange sight beside him, and looked over, and saw the queen of the demon realm smiling and saying, you look refreshed. Thanks to the rest last night, my spirit has fully recovered. Musian smiled. That's good. The queen of the demon realm nodded slightly, and then changed the subject, but why do I think your spiritual energy is a little weaker than yesterday? This woman is too perceptive. Musian's eyelids twitched slightly. The queen of the demon realm looked at him with interest, her red lips moved slightly, and she said in a voice transmission, your heart just told me, this woman is too sharp. Did I discover some of your secrets? I almost forgot that she could read minds. Emptiness is color, color is emptiness. Musian repeated it in his mind several times, barely suppressing the messy thoughts in his heart, and then took out a map. We should be able to reach the land of the Fox clan today. Then we can use this map to search for the location of the soul-locking bell. Everyone's attention was really attracted. Wei Mengru glanced at the young master and said, what is this? The map of the Fox clan was drawn by Ruoxi last night, Musian explained. The queen of the demon realm glanced at Byruoxi, and her soft voice was a little playful, "You seem to have never been to the demon realm, but you know the location of the Fox clan." Bairuoxi said lightly, "My mother went to Tianqian City under the order of the 7th seat, so I naturally know the location of the Fox clan. The subordinates of the 7th seat, if I remember correctly, they seem to have caused you a lot of trouble at the beginning." The Queen of the Demon Realm smiled charmingly. She paused, looked at the map in Musian's hand for a few times, and continued, "But it seems that the palace master is not very good at drawing." Although the map was drawn in sufficient detail, the painting skills were not even as good as those of some 7 or 8-year-old children, especially in some parts of the map where the outlines looked a little weak and even messy. Bairuoxi did not refute, but just secretly glanced at Musian, silently buried his face and said nothing. Wei Mengru couldn't help but glanced at the blushing Bai beauty with doubt. The Bai family of Tianqian City is a powerful force. Although it is not big, it is much richer than more than 90% of the cultivators. The beautiful Bai is proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Logically, she should not draw such a bad map. Feeling the resentful look of Nai 11, Musian coughed and immediately said, "Ahem, anyway, as long as the map can be used, we should set off according to the markings on the map." Although his affair with Bairuoxi was known to almost everyone on the road, last night when he was on the road, he was intimate with Bairuoxi while she was drawing pictures. If Sister Mengru knew about it, she would inevitably feel unbalanced and even jealous. But as he finished speaking, he suddenly noticed that the Queen of the Demon Realm was looking at him with a smile, but not a smile, her eyes full of teasing. Mind reading is really one of the most troublesome spells in the world. Musian pretended not to notice and patted Lonke on the head. "Let's go on. The Queen of the Demon Realm is on the same level as the Qing Emperor, and she is the type who does not show her thoughts on her face." Musian doesn't know what she is thinking at the moment, but Sister Mengru is also nearby, so he can't ask. Just pretend you don't know what happened. In the afternoon of that day, 4 people and a bird were flying in the air, and unknowingly saw a desolate flat land in front of them. Musian checked the map and confirmed that the desolate flat land was the place where the Fox tribe lived in the past. He rode the dragon bird and landed on the flat land. In the field of vision, there appeared a staircase that seemed to have no end. The steps were covered with moss, the sides were covered with bushes, and all around were tall and slender old trees. The 9-tailed sky fox once set up a formation here. Without the leadership of someone from the Fox clan, we would not be able to set foot here, the Queen of the Demon Realm said. Whoosh! At this moment, a sword energy struck from the end of the stairs, pointing directly in the direction of Musian. The Queen of the Demon Realm raised her charming eyes and said calmly, "Be presumptuous." The sword energy was forcibly divided in front of Musian and blasted towards both sides, causing a shock. At the end of the steps, there were several women with fox ears standing on their heads. Every appearance was considered to be of the highest quality. Not far from these women, there were 2 old men standing in front of the steps, with a hint of wariness in their turbid eyes. "Who are you, and why did you rush into the land of the Fox clan?" "They are the fox demons who still chose to stay here when the Fox clan was lonely." "Don't be nervous. I will just tell them." The Queen of the Demon Realm softly explained to Musian, raised her head and glanced calmly at the alert little demon cultivators and Fox clan elders not far ahead. The great elder of the Fox clan on the steps, who was wearing simple robes, looked wary and said, "Who are you? Our Fox clan has been at peace with the world for thousands of years. If we don't explain the reason, I'm afraid I can only ask you to leave this place." The Queen of the Demon Realm was stunned for a moment. Musian was also stunned for a moment, and subconsciously glanced at this fresh and elegantly dressed demon empress. This is different from what was promised. They don't seem to know you. It stands to reason that when the Queen of the Demon Realm raises her head, these people should recognize each other's identity. But looking at the current situation, it is obvious that these fox demons do not know the queen of the demon realm. Don't you even know me? The queen of the demon realm looked calmly and glanced at this group of people calmly. Who are you? A fox demon on the steps asked warily. In front of the steps, many fox demons gathered again, adding up to less than 100 people. It seems that the village of these people does not have internet access and information is not very developed. Musian tried his best to suppress his laughter so as not to be offended by the queen of the demon realm, who looked not very good looking at the moment. Several elders of the Fox clan who still stayed here and never left frowned at the group of uninvited guests. The little fox demons around them also turned their heads and looked at the four people secretly. Their eyes were either curious, friendly, or full of hostility. The great elder frowned slightly, glanced at the queen of the demon realm, and said in a deep voice, "You have the aura of the demon clan, but the other girl in the yellow skirt and the young man next to her are monks from Dongzhou, right? Why did you bring them with you? Are you coming to disturb me while I wait for King Xiu? It seems that they haven't left the land of the Fox clan for a long time, and they don't even know the queen of the demon realm." Musian raised his hands and bowed, and said, "My disciple Musian of the Lianji sect, I have met a few elders." At this time, Musian's name is known to everyone in Jizhu. After all, he is the husband approved by Qing Emperor. Moreover, Qing Emperor held a grand wedding in the Holy King city some time ago and invited all Jizhu to come. He is extremely famous. Big. However, the elder of the Fox clan on the steps shook his head and said, "I don't know him." The Fox clan elders on the side also had no interest in Musian, and were just wary of these people. On the contrary, when the female cultivators from the Fox tribe next to them saw Musian, their beautiful eyes suddenly lit up. Musian's body exuded a very attractive aura. For them, this aura was an irresistible temptation. The great elder's eyes fell on the queen of the demon realm, and he said slowly, "May I ask which demon clan you are a demon cultivator from?" "She is the current ruler of the demon world," Musian explained. A fox demon on the side couldn't help but sneer, "How is it possible? His Majesty the Demon Emperor's Tianhuan Kung Fu intimidates the 9 provinces. Do you mean that someone has replaced his position and become the new master of the demon world?" The fox demon cultivators on the side stared at Musian with vigilance and became even more alert. It was 1,000 years ago that the queen of the demon realm replaced the first demon emperor as the ruler. Isn't there any latest news in your village? There are so many flaws that Musian didn't know where to start. The great elder looked around the 4 people and said calmly, "The land of the Fox clan is now in such a state of decline, and there are no natural or earthly treasures here. Everyone, please come back. I will not kill any living beings because I am in a good mood today." The queen of the demon realm raised her eyebrows slightly, and there was a hint of interest in her eyes. "In this huge Bizhu, I think there is no one who has not heard of the name of the queen of the demon realm, but none of the descendants of the 9-tailed sky fox know her identity. Elders, why waste time talking to them? Since they refuse to leave, just make them go away." The Fox tribe youth Baijan said impatiently, and he had no good feelings towards the cultivators from Dongzhou at all. In the past, only 1 or 2 cultivators might pass by this fox plain every few years. There were also cultivators who were curious about this place, but they were all driven away by the elders of the tribe without exception. It stands to reason that the same should be done to these people now. However, as soon as the voice fell, Baijan found that the elders around him did not speak, and stared at the young cultivator from Dongzhou under the steps with a dull look, as if they had encountered a powerful enemy of the same realm as them. Under normal circumstances, this should not happen. The aura exuded by this young man is at most at the refining spirit realm. However, the 3 female cultivators beside him could not see their realm. It seems that there must be a special magic weapon to shield their realm. But why did the elders not take action now? Baijan was about to speak, but at this moment, a vast sea of demonic energy almost enveloped the entire Fox clan land. The terrifying demonic energy was like a haze covering the hearts of every fox demon. This demonic energy was actually emitted from a cultivator from Dongzhou. 9 foxtails unfolded silently behind Musian, and the pink demon mist enveloped him, revealing an indescribable charm, which attracted the eyes of the female cultivators of the Fox clan. Musian slowly put away the pink light jumping on his sword finger, raised his head and smiled, "I don't know the queen of the demon realm. 9-tailed heavenly fox, you should know her, right?" 9-tailed heavenly fox, a cultivator from Dongzhou, is actually a 9-tailed heavenly fox. When seeing the 9 foxtails behind Musian, the members of the Fox clan fell silent almost instantly. Then, several old monsters on the steps breathed rapidly, almost losing their minds, and rushed down the steps together. "How can you, a cultivator from Dongzhou, have the strongest body of my Fox clan? Where did you find the body of the 9-tailed celestial fox?" The elders surrounded him excitedly, staring at Musian with surprise. "I have an agreement with the 9-tailed celestial fox that I will revive her in the future. This time I came here for this matter," Musian explained. If Musian had said this at the beginning, naturally no one would believe it, and they would even be regarded as enemies. But the 9 foxtails that appeared behind him now made people have to believe this fact. Seeing that the elders were all confused, Musian roughly explained the whole story. After an incense stick of time, the fox demon cultivators who had been wary of everyone before suddenly became extremely enthusiastic and invited everyone to go to the village together. "I'm going to worship the ancestral land of the 9-tailed sky fox. You wait for me for a while," Musian said to the 3 people behind him. "I'll go with you," the queen of the demon realm said lightly. She was worried that Musian would be alone. Musian glanced at the elder beside him and saw that he had no objection, so he nodded. Bairuoxi glanced at the charming figure of the queen of the demon realm, and her eyebrows frowned inadvertently. The queen of the demon realm stared at Mulang all the way, as if she was staring at her prey. At this moment, letting the queen of the demon realm protect Musian always makes people feel a little uneasy. This trip to the land of the Fox clan will be smooth, which is actually within Musian's expectations. The only surprise for Musian was that the people here didn't even know that the demon world had changed its master, let alone recognize the demon queen. Fortunately, Her Majesty the Queen didn't bother with them. Musian sighed in his heart, and unknowingly followed the Fox clan's elder to an ancient ancestral hall. "My dear friend Mu, if you can really revive the ancestors of my Fox clan, you will be the great benefactor of my Fox clan. No matter what needs we have in the future, as long as you give an order, we will go all out and die to repay you for your kindness today," the elder spoke sincerely. Musian shook his head and said, "I am just fulfilling the agreement with her. I can't be regarded as a great benefactor of the Fox clan. Agreement is one thing, but for us, as long as the queen can be reborn, our Fox clan will definitely be able to restore the glory of the past in the future. This is the greatest kindness." The elder's face was ruddy, and his tone was a little excited. The Fox clan has declined to this point, and even the resources for the younger generation of the Fox clan to practice are extremely scarce. Over the past 1,000 years, the Fox clan has produced several branches, all of which are attached to the major demon clans in the demon world. Only the most pure Fox clan lineage at the beginning still chose to stay here. If Musian hadn't come today, perhaps they would have spent their lives in a daze. I wonder if I will regret staying in such a barren place all my life when I look back on my demon life in the future. It stands to reason that you are also a land immortal in the Return to Void realm. If you want, it shouldn't be difficult to live in a corner of the demon world and get some resources. Why do you insist on staying here? Musian finally couldn't help asking on the way. The great elder sighed softly, "My little friends don't know. The demon emperor declared war on Dongzhou. With Dongzhou's fighting power, I'm afraid it won't be possible to finish this battle in 1,000 years. If we leave the land of the Fox clan, I'm afraid I will also be forced to go to the Jiyuan battlefield to fight with the Dongzhou monks. That battle never started, because the first demon emperor had been suppressed by Qing emperor before that, and now he has perished. The demon queen finally couldn't help but speak. "Who are you?" the great elder asked doubtfully. "She is the new ruler of the demon world today," Musian explained. "I just mentioned this to you." The great elder was stunned for a moment. He wanted to use his spiritual sense to scan this plainly dressed but naturally charming demon cultivator. However, the moment he raised his head and looked at her, his heart suddenly trembled. He quickly raised his hands to bow and respectfully said, "Previously, I'm so sorry for being so rude to you." After thousands of years of training, his experience told him that this woman's strength and bloodline were far above him. It seemed that Musian did not lie to him. The demon world had already changed its owner. The elder of the Fox clan who had just connected to the 2G network was filled with sighs. The queen of the demon realm waved her hand gently, not bothering to think about it. Compared to this, there is one thing she cares about more at the moment. What on earth were Musian and Gong Lianyu doing last night? As if thinking of what she just heard when reading her mind, the queen of the demon realm looked at the young man walking not far ahead and couldn't help but lick her lower lips gently. He really knows how to play. After nearly half an hour, Musian successfully found the copper bell placed in the ancestral hall in this abandoned ancestral land. Is this the soul-locking bell? Musian played with the copper bell in his hand, and after just shaking it twice, he could hear the charming and melodious sound. With it, we can find the trace of spiritual consciousness that the nine-tailed sky fox originally hid in Dongzhou. This soul-locking bell seems to be locked to something. Try injecting a ray of spiritual energy into it and see, the queen of the demon realm suddenly said. After hearing this, Musian injected a ray of spiritual energy into the soul-locking bell. And almost at that moment, he saw a silk thread that kept being cut and messed up lit up in the soul-locking bell. The thread swayed gently in mid-air for a moment, then quietly pointed in the direction of Dongzhou. The nine-tailed fox's spiritual consciousness is indeed in Dongzhou. But which ancient family has an ancestor who is a demon cultivator? Musian's eyes flickered slightly, and he secretly guessed in his heart. There is not only one ancient family in Dongzhou that has the shadow of demon cultivators. Similarly, the demon world also has Dongzhou's forces infiltrating into it. In fact, this is not surprising. A soft, seductive, and sweet voice came from behind. At the same time, the great elder on the side had quietly left the ancestral hall at the signal of the queen of the demon realm. It seems that Kyushu is much more complicated than I thought. Musian looked at the soul-locking bell in his hand and couldn't help but whisper to himself. Over the years, the demon world has been pervasive, and the queen of the demon world has secretly planted many spies in Dongzhou, and even Musian is one of them. Although the current queen of the demon realm seems to want to take this eyeliner back and use it herself. No matter what, the purpose of this trip has been achieved. Musian quickly gathered his thoughts, put the soul-locking bell into the ring, and then said sincerely, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for accompanying me this time. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid, it won't go so smoothly." Although there were some hiccups in the end, they were able to reach the land of the Fox clan so quickly along the way, all because the queen of the demon world was by their side. "It's just some small things, it doesn't matter." The queen of the demon realm answered nonchalantly, playing with a strand of hair. The plain and elegant clothes could not hide her charming and sexy figure. Her plump breasts held up the clothes, which made her look even more astringent. This woman is indeed a fairy no matter what she wears. Musian couldn't help but look at her a few more times, and then said, "Let's go back first, Ruoxi and the others should be waiting for us." After speaking, he turned around and was about to leave, but at this moment, a pair of hands suddenly pressed lightly on Musian's shoulders. The queen of the demon realm put her hands on Musian's shoulders, and along with her was a soft and delicate body gently pressing against her back. Musian was stunned for a moment, and as soon as he turned around, he saw her beautiful bright red eyes full of thrilling temptation. "If you are not busy after this, Please follow me back to the demon palace first. I have something to talk to you about. She paused, and the soft and numb voice continued to ring in her ears. Last night you were intimate with Byruoxi in my cave, and you even asked her to draw that map during this period. You don't want Qing Emperor to find out about this, right? So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 428. Lianji Sect. Concubine Shangyan sat in the back mountain of Lianji Peak, looking like she had just taken a bath, with a little dampness in her hair. She was wearing a black dress and a slightly loose black robe on the outside, which vaguely showed a pair of plump and slender snow-white long legs. Although the loose robe could not outline her plump and tight figure, it revealed a mysterious and intellectual temperament. The black embroidered shoes set off her jade feet even more white and crystal, and the curled black hair exuded a faint fragrance. AAA. Miss Lin Ling beside her said worriedly with her silver hair loose and shaking her head. Are you worried that he will be in danger in the demon world? Concubine Shangyan glanced at Lin Ling. The eater, if you are worried, you can go to him. Lin Ling shook his head slowly and took out his cardboard. Didn't you say before that if I go to him, it might cause a strong reaction in the demon world? When a Hedeo realm enters the demon world, it will be noticed by other Hedeo realm people. Moreover, she is blessed by heaven and born as a spirit beast. All the luck in the world is added to her. No matter where she goes, she will make a huge noise. Unless the other party's realm is really too low, it is difficult to detect her luck. But there are many capable people in the demon world, it is impossible not to detect. Don't worry, with other people here, he will not have any problems, Shang Yanfei said lightly. Lin Ling shook her head lightly and took out the cardboard, but he died once in the Yaokai Holy Land before, and he also encountered a lot of trouble when the Qing Emperor ascended to heaven last time. Shang Yanfei leaned lazily on the chair, sitting with a pair of slender legs crossed, and said lightly, even so, he will not die. No creature in this world can kill him. Her appearance is stunning, her temperament is mysterious, but she exudes a special charm, but her appearance is pure and holy enough to make people obsessed and even crazy. Even the most skilled painters in the world would find it difficult to depict the appearance of this woman. Lin Ling shook her head and took out the cardboard, but he would also be hurt and sad. There was still a bit of worry in her eyes, so much so that she couldn't eat half of the roast goose rice in her hand. The demon world is not like other places, and Shang Yanfei's hand has not reached into the demon world. The demon queen has not been in harmony for a long time, but her talent and bloodline are too terrifying. No one knows what the woman is planning. Even the Hedeo realm is difficult to refuse the natural furnace, who knows whether the demon queen will be an exception. When did you worry about a person of the opposite sex so much? Shang Yanfei looked at the innocent Lin Ling with a smile in her eyes, and gently picked up a piece of roast goose with her slender fingers and put it in her mouth to taste. AAA, Lin Ling tilted her head to look at her. Just consider it as a reward. Shang Yanfei smiled brightly. Just at this moment, the cold wind blew, rippling the lake. When the black skirt fluttered, a pair of white and tender legs were revealed, one of which was wrapped with mysterious and complex black runes. Since you are so worried, I will go see him, she said lightly. The moment she stood up, there was a black mist behind her, and the sound of chains colliding with each other was faintly heard, and the road roared. You have no other hobbies in the Hedeo realm, just like the Minotaur, right? Musian heard the soft and charming voice behind him, and couldn't help complaining in his heart. He just wanted to turn his head, and he heard the woman behind him say it again. Don't turn your head. Before Musian reacted, he heard the queen of the demon realm said casually, I have something else to ask you. What happened during my retreat and why did you marry the Green Emperor? It should have been her who came first. As the person who is most likely to be the first to awaken the memory of the past life, the queen of the demon realm has an advantage that is not great, but it is reasonable that she should crush all the women around Musian except Kingdi. After all, the fish in Mr. Mew's fish pond are still developing small fry, while the queen of the demon realm has long been a big shark. If she wanted, she could even bring Muzian back to the demon realm during the period when Muzian went to Ji-Yuan. If she had taken him back at that time, there would not have been the marriage of King Di and Muzian later. Muzian explained, in fact, marriage is just a superficial appearance. Yao Meng's real purpose is actually to ascend to heaven. Het. Who knew that? A cold and arrogant soft chuckle came from behind. I'm afraid that ascending to heaven is just a superficial appearance, and getting married is her purpose. If she gets married, she will be able to suppress others in the future. The problem is that at that time, it was only the phantom of me and her who got married in the Holy King City. We didn't really get married at all, Muzian complained in his heart. The queen of the demon realm said calmly, the time when the Green Emperor merged with the Dao was almost a lifetime earlier than mine. With your current age and experience, how much can you guess what she is thinking? She knows that if she forces you to marry her, you will definitely be dissatisfied. But if she first proposes to marry you, and after you refuse, she takes a step back and says that it is just a pretense of marriage, but in fact it is for the purpose of ascending to heaven, then you will remember her kindness instead. The queen of the demon realm twisted a strand of hair with her fingers and said calmly, at the same time as ascending to heaven, there is also a title of husband and wife, why not? Muzian was stunned and almost woke up. Oh no, isn't this the window opening theory that he has used several times before? Unexpectedly, he himself was involved in it without knowing it. Yao Meng did win the battle in the Holy King City, but the window opening theory mentioned by the Queen of the Demon Realm was something Muzian had not thought of. However, this is not a black spot. No matter what, Yao Meng is always thinking about me, Muzian said, thank you for your reminder, Your Majesty. I will think about this matter slowly after returning to Dongzhou. As soon as this thought flashed through Muzian's mind, he heard a faint sigh from behind. That's what you said, but what you are thinking now is, the Green Emperor treats you very well, and this is nothing. Mind reading. Muzian reacted almost immediately. This is really the most troublesome ability in the world, no one else. Muzian complained viciously in his heart, and said helplessly, Yao Meng really treats me very well and considers me everywhere. The Queen of the Demon Realm's voice gradually turned cold, and she glanced at him lightly, she treats you very well, so what about me? Muzian immediately said, Your Majesty's kindness to me will be repaid with all my strength in the future. The Queen of the Demon Realm snorted, that's what I said, but I'm afraid you even forgot my name. Muzian was silent for a moment, and suddenly his mind moved, and he whispered, Shizixuan, right. The Queen of the Demon Realm was obviously stunned. Her jade fingers were painted with a layer of enchanting red nails. Her fingertips lightly touched the tempting little mouth. Looking at Muzian's back, her beautiful eyes flickered, and she said, You actually still remember my name. It stands to reason that Muzian should not have awakened her memories of her previous life, but why would Muzian remember things related to her? Seeing that the woman behind him fell into a brief silence, Muzian turned around and looked at the ruler of the demon world. The lonely Fox Clan land was originally uninhabited, and there was no one in the ancestral land at ordinary times. The cold wind blew, and the plain clothes of the Queen of the Demon Realm were tightly attached to her graceful body. Her skirt fluttered in the wind, and the luster of her skin between her deerskin boots and the hem of her skirt was faintly revealed. Although I don't remember what happened with you, I will never forget this name. Muzian looked at Shizixuan's plain dress gently and spoke gently. In his mind, he kept telling himself not to think about anything else, just look at her and get rid of all distractions. Muzian naturally didn't know Shizixuan's name. But he could communicate with the heavenly court, so he naturally knew who inherited the 9 seats. The first seat was Yao Meng, the second seat was Bairu Oxi, and the name of the third seat was someone Muzian had never seen before. Muzian took a gamble because of this, and this Shizixuan was the queen of the demon realm. As it turned out, he made the right bet. But now he still has to fight against Shizixuan's mind reading. Look into her eyes, don't think about other things. Musian stared at this plump and charming woman, and kept reminding himself in his heart. Then stared and stared, his attention was successfully attracted, and all distracting thoughts were eliminated. Because his eyes could not help but secretly look at her beautiful figure. Shizixuan seemed to have read something in her mind. She glanced at the boy with seductive eyes and said in a soft voice, "Don't you have anything else you want to do besides that kind of thing?" Even if it was scolding, it gave people a sense of coquettishness of a beautiful woman, which was a natural body of charm. Just saying this, but the original dissatisfaction with Musian, but also with his previous call of his name, made him feel much happier. Seeing this, Musian breathed a sigh of relief, but he became more and more afraid of mind reading. Young Master Mu thought he was very good at making people happy, but there was a big premise for this, that is, he couldn't be read. It felt very uncomfortable to have your underwear seen through. It's almost time for us to go back. It's been a long time since we came to the ancestral land. They should be worried about our safety, Musian said at the right time. Oh. Shizixuan looked at Musian with charming red eyes, and gently touched his chest with her fingertips. She laughed softly, "But you are clearly saying in your heart now, His Majesty's body is so soft and fragrant, I really want her to hold it like this and feel it more." Don't say it, it's really going to kill me." No matter how thick-skinned he was, Musian felt a little embarrassed at this moment and covered his face silently. Shizixuan smiled faintly and said, "You are saying in your heart, if Ruoxi finds me now, I am afraid she will take me to the basement of the Sword Palace after I go back. But don't worry," Shizixuan's bright red eyes were full of smiles, "I will protect you." If someone else said this, Musian might still be skeptical, but the one who said it was the queen of the demon world. It was very convincing. It's just that this dress doesn't match her attitude of looking down on everyone at the moment. Sure enough, this woman is more suitable to sit in front of the throne and command others. Well, to put it bluntly, the queen's makeup is more suitable for her. Musian was about to speak. At this time, the pink demon mist enveloped the two of them, and he was stunned for a moment. Shizixuan's clothes and skirts quietly faded away, and then quietly changed into another set of clothes. In the mist, her long curly hair like cherry blossoms naturally fell to her hips. The dark green waist-binding dress outlined her full and upright chest and slender waist, and the black suspender stockings outlined her snow-white skin. She was wearing a pair of dark green embroidered shoes and a luxurious cloak on her back, like an empress looking down on all living things. "What are you daydreaming about? Didn't you say in your heart that you prefer me to dominate all living things like this?" The ruler of the demon world with seductive eyes touched the crystal earrings dangling under her earlobes, glanced at the boy lightly, and her voice changed from the original fresh and elegant girl's crisp voice to the sexy and charming queen's voice. She was getting more and more seductive and charming. This is a body born with seductiveness. My skills are far less than 1/3 of hers, Musian sighed in his heart. After this, you plan to go to the Dongzhoulan clan, right? Shizixuan asked casually. Musian nodded slightly and said, "Senior sister has done me a favor, I can't just leave them alone." Shizixuan hummed and said jokingly, "But your heart tells me, senior sister is an important fish in the fish pond, and sister Feiying and senior sister must not be abandoned." Musian. "Your Majesty, can we still have a pleasant chat?" Shizixuan didn't care about Musian's rather speechless eyes at this moment, but smiled and said, "Just a joke, I know you are sentimental, and you will definitely not abandon the sisters of the Lan family. As for your idea, I can only say that if most people see the sisters, they will probably have the same idea as you, but you will put it into action. Okay, since you have found the soul-locking bell left by the nine-tailed sky fox, then go back first." Musian was stunned, and couldn't help but look at this demon queen who turned everyone upside down. He didn't expect Shizixuan to pass on this topic so easily. He thought she would ask him about the Land Sisters. Shizixuan placed her slender jade fingers between her charming red lips, tilted her head, and pretended to be puzzled. "Why, aren't you satisfied because I didn't have sex with you here?" She licked her fingertips and smiled charmingly. "Sure enough, you also like to secretly make out with others without telling your Taoist partner, right?" This woman always likes to tease him like this, but although she is a great man in the Hedeo realm, she has never been in a relationship. As a result, she still acts like a big sister. Musian said in his heart, "Your Majesty misunderstood, I also want to leave here as soon as possible." Shizixuan narrowed her eyes and glanced at Musian lightly. Then, under his increasingly fiery gaze, her fingertips gently touched the front of the skirt at her thighs and hooked her fingertips. However, the next moment, the demon mist completely enveloped her body. Before Musian could see anything, her figure was completely covered by the pink demon mist. Then, a charming laugh came from the demon fog. Shizixuan carelessly smoothed her skirt, curled her lips, and said lightly, "Did you forget that I can read minds? Do you know what you were thinking just now?" Fishing failed, Musian had no tricks, so he said silently, "If your Majesty reads minds like this again, you will lose a person who respects you in the future, little monk." "Respect." Shizixuan raised her slender white scallion finger, hooked the boy's chin, and teased with a smile, "What you call respect is the respect that wants to suppress me. No, I just want you to help me practice and temper my concentration." Musian pushed her hand away and complained, "Since your Majesty knows how to read minds, you should know why I have thoughts about you. A ruler of the demon world talks to you with a soft and sweet voice, and there is still no one around, especially the other party even plays cosplay with him, who wouldn't be moved." Shizixuan licked her lips and suddenly smiled, "You dare to do this to me only? If that woman stood in front of you, would you dare to have such thoughts about her like now?" "Who is that woman?" Musian was stunned and didn't react. At this time, he found that Shizixuan's figure was rippling like ripples. The next moment, the woman who appeared in his sight turned into a woman wearing a loose black robe. Although this loose black robe could not outline her figure vividly, the wide sleeves fluttered, but it made her temperament more gorgeous. Just standing there, she was like a banished immortal, sacred and elegant, exuding an attractive mysterious aura. Shang Yanfei. Although he never remembered Shang Yanfei's face, Musian always felt an inexplicable familiarity with her, and at this moment he directly recognized her identity. Sensing the boy's gaze fixed on her, Shizixuan said in a calm voice with a faint smile in her eyes, "Even this sect master dares to have evil thoughts." It was obvious that she was deliberately imitating the voice and temperament of the sect master's sister, so that Musian couldn't help but be distracted. This is too much like the sect master's sister." Musian was shocked. Shizixuan smiled brightly, "Why are you so surprised? I can read minds and I am born with a charming body. Isn't it natural that I can change my appearance?" Musian came back to his senses and murmured, "I never knew you could turn into someone else before." It is worth mentioning that even if it was Shang Yanfei disguised by Shizixuan, Musian would still subconsciously forget her appearance after looking away, and it was difficult to imprint it in the depths of his mind. Shizixuan smiled and said, "There are still many things you don't know." She paused and changed her tone, "However, you have even moved your own sect leader. If that woman knew about it, I wonder what she would think." Musian came back to his senses and complained, "Anyone who has seen that sect leader will probably have some thoughts." Shizixuan rarely refuted, but nodded slightly. King Di Yaomeng was the dream lover of countless cultivators in Zhuzhou. At the beginning, everyone who saw that cold fairy was attracted to her, and one of the reasons was that the Taorim she walked was like a fairy who was not worldly. Among the women Shizixuan had seen, only Shang Yanfei had a similar appearance and temperament. However, people who have seen concubine Shangyan will quickly forget her appearance. That woman is often so low-key that people will subconsciously ignore her existence. Musian looked at the appearance of concubine Shangyan and continued, in fact, I have this idea, partly because of the temptation from His Majesty before. If Shizixuan hadn't aroused his thoughts first, he wouldn't have had any bold ideas the first time he saw the sect master. I think so. Musian wasn't sure either. Shizixuan laughed so hard that she gave the young man a charming and seductive look. Do you mean to blame me? If you follow me back to the demon palace, I can accompany you now. This is really hard to refuse. Musian's eyes moved slightly, and he was about to speak. Sensing the boy's fiery gaze, Shizixuan rolled her eyes at him, covered her mouth and smiled softly. You wish, even if you agree to go back to the demon palace with me, I can only let you kiss me once here at most. However, she held the boy's face with a smile, exhaling like orchid. I said that I can only let you kiss me once here at most, but if you agree to go back to the demon palace with me, maybe after you go back, we can go one step further. Stay in this village to rest for one night today, think about it. Suddenly, Musian felt the fragrant wind leaving the table. He raised his head and saw Shizixuan walking into the village. The skirt swayed gently with the lotus steps, a pair of high-heeled boots looming. She wore a phoenix hairpin with exquisite carvings on her head, and the golden step shaking swayed gently, but the swaying frequency was not large, highlighting the noble and elegant calm posture of a woman. Every step she took was fascinating and even more charming. Tisk, after all the trouble, you just let me kiss you. Musian looked down on her. Looking at the tall and sexy queen of the demon world wearing high-heeled boots, he suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Shizixuan's wrist, then under her condescending and playful gaze, he stepped forward to embrace her plump and soft waist, and then kissed her tempting red lips. The spiritual energy of the heavenly court flowed silently into Shizixuan's body from the natural furnace. There is only one cauldron of the great power of Hedeo, but one cauldron contains 10 caves, which symbolize perfection and extreme. And in that instant, the spiritual energy of the heavenly court flowed into the 10 caves. Then, in the heavenly court, the originally dim third seat, now also quietly lit up. After an incense stick of time, Shizixuan lightly pushed Musian away, smiled charmingly, looked at him with her beautiful eyes, held his face and said, "Do you like it?" Musian was silent. I don't know if it was because of her natural charm or because of the rouge, her lips seemed to have a faint fragrance. At this time, as if to tell Musian some secret, she leaned over to Musian's ear and whispered, "Come to my room tonight. Remember to keep it secret from your Taoist partner." "Heh, you actually want me to take such a big risk to find you? If Ruoxi and Sister Mengru find out, won't I be locked up in the basement by them?" Musian chuckled in his heart. Shizixuan's mouth curled up a faint smile that saw through everything. "What are you thinking about? Don't I know it?" After returning to the village, Shizixuan raised her hand to open the cave. Just as she was about to step into it, she noticed that the space beside her was slightly distorted, and a woman walked out of that space. The first seat in the demon world. Shizixuan raised her eyebrows slightly and asked, "What's the matter?" "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 429. What's the matter? The queen of the demon realm glanced at him slightly, her face was calm, and her voice was soft and charming. The first seat showed a solemn look, and whispered respectfully, "Yesterday, the demon tribe in the northern wilderness rioted. Although people have been sent to go, the leader of the other party is a subordinate of the nine-tailed sky fox in the past. It wants to see you." The queen of the demon realm nodded softly. The northern wilderness used to be the territory of the nine-tailed sky fox. The nine-tailed sky fox caused strange phenomena a few days ago. I think some demon tribes that were dormant in the dark in the past are unwilling to be ordinary and lonely. But the so-called riot is nothing more than a show of wanting to negotiate. Their real purpose is not to riot or rise up, but to want more resources for cultivation. The resources that can be allocated to the major demon tribes in the demon world are limited, but basically they are much more than the demon tribes in the wilderness. After all, the demon cultivators in the wilderness were all branches left by the nine-tailed sky fox, and the queen of the demon realm also continued the rules set by the first generation of the demon emperor without changing them. "Does your majesty plan to go there?" asked the first seed. The queen of the demon realm nodded slightly and said calmly, "Then go there. From here to the wilderness, if it is an ordinary cultivator, it may take 1 or 2 days, but if the queen of the demon realm goes there, it will not take even a quarter of an hour." Musian accepted the nine-tailed sky fox's favor. Since he was once a subordinate of the nine-tailed sky fox, he should give the nine-tailed sky fox some rewards first. "That's great. With your majesty's presence, I think the unrest will be quelled soon." The first seat was relieved. Then, she carefully glanced at the face of the queen of the demon realm. The curves of her cheeks met at her jaw, outlining a naturally charming face. With a straight nose, a touch of red at the corners of her eyes, and charming red eyes, men and women will be attracted to her involuntarily. It seems that she should not know yet. The first seat was relieved. These days, all the 13 seats in the demon world have lived in anxiety. Before Musian married the Green Emperor, they did not disturb Her Majesty in order to avoid disturbing Her Majesty. After Her Majesty woke up, the demons in the demon world did not muster up the courage to tell the truth because of fear and uneasiness. The attitude of Her Majesty today seems to be that she is still unaware of this matter, otherwise, with Her Majesty's means, I am afraid that she would have punished them long ago. "Then I will take my leave first." After the first seat finished speaking, he bowed slightly, and the next moment, he turned into light and disappeared in this village. The queen of the demon world glanced at the rippling void beside her and sneered. "After returning this time, none of these people will think of running away. But before that, let's go to the wilderness first. It will be dark when we come back. If nothing unexpected happens, he will not be able to hold back tonight, right?" The queen of the demon realm showed a charming smile, licked her red lips, raised her fingertips, and threw the hydrangea into the air of the village so that Musian could meditate and practice in it. She touched the luxurious crystal earrings under her earlobes with her fingertips, turned around, and disappeared into this lonely village as an illusory figure. "I didn't expect Zixuan to be able to turn into someone else. This is too exciting." Musian sighed along the way, thinking about the ability of the queen of the demon realm to transform today, and unknowingly returned to the village in the Fox clan. This village is located on 100 steps. It is blessed by the formation left by the nine-tailed fox. It is difficult for ordinary cultivators to approach. The only ones left in the village are the purest branch of the Fox clan, and the number of people is sparse, so the village seems quite lonely. The queen of the demon realm can transform into anyone, and even imitate the other person's temperament and voice. If I am with her in the future, won't she alone be able to make me experience different happiness? I just don't know if the queen of the demon realm after the transformation is only similar in appearance, or if her body structure is completely the same as the person she transformed. Musian just thought of this. At this time, he suddenly heard a faint sigh not far away. Not far ahead is an open space, and the ancient trees on both sides of the open space are swaying, and the leaves are rustling. Bairuoxi stood in front of a deserted empty space, her face calm. She said, "My mother told me that she was born here, but not long after, there was a civil strife in the tribe, and many tribesmen moved away from here, and she was one of the people who left here with an elder in the tribe at that time. But I didn't expect that now there is no house to live in. They have been away from the Fox tribe for more than 10 years, So it's not surprising, Wei Mengru said calmly. Bairuoxi stared at the empty space, and soon felt relieved, shaking her head and said, well, this trip this time can be regarded as fulfilling one of my wishes, and I won't think about it any more in the future. Where is Sister Mengru's hometown? Bairuoxi suddenly asked. Wei Mengru raised her head slightly, looking at the sky as if reminiscing. Her expression suddenly realized, a very remote small village. I don't have many memories of that village, and when I really grew up, I was already following the young master. Bairuoxi looked thoughtful. Bairuoxi only found out about Wei Mengru's affairs later. At that time, Bairuoxi basically avoided Musian as much as possible. After all, Master Mu in Tianqian City was not notorious, but he was definitely not a good person. Therefore, she naturally had little contact with Musian's maid. After all, if I was targeted by Musian, I might be forced to marry into the Mu family. Although he still targeted me later. When she thought of this, Miss Bai, who was not good at tea art, narrowed her eyes and said faintly, if I had contacted him at that time, I would probably have married him in Tianqian City. Wei Mengru heard this and immediately said, at that time, he had a very bad reputation. Even if you approached him, you might not like him. This Sister Mengru actually said bad things about her own young master while I was away, Musian muttered in his heart and approached quietly. That's right. If I took the initiative to approach him at that time, I'm afraid people would think I had other purposes and would actually fall in love with a playboy. Bairuoxi smiled softly with her hands covering her mouth. Her peach blossom eyes were soft and tender, and her eyes were sparkling. Afterwards, she looked at the house in front of her that had turned into ruins. After staring at it quietly for a long time, she finally retracted her gaze and turned around to leave. As soon as she turned her head, the girl was surprised. Mu Lang, when did you come back? Have you found the soul locking bell? She continued to ask. Musian nodded slightly and said, we have successfully found the soul locking bell in the ancestral land. We can rest tonight and return to Dongzhou. He took out the copper bell from the ring, and Bairuoxi's eyes were immediately attracted to it. Her beautiful eyes flashed slightly, and she said softly, there is indeed a breath left by the nine-tailed sky fox in this thing. Although she is a three-tailed fox, anyone who is a member of the fox clan can naturally detect the breath of the nine-tailed sky fox in this copper bell. She stretched out her fingertips and gently touched the surface of the copper bell. At this time, a light golden light pattern emanated from the copper bell. As Bairuoxi's fingertips touched it lightly, the golden light pattern rippled like ripples, preventing her from touching it. This soul-locking bell can only be used by the nine-tailed sky fox. After a few days, I think you can also use it, Musian smiled. Bairuoxi's body is also now flowing with the effect of Tegzapil, but it will take some time for her to refine Tegzapil. After it is successfully refined, I think the second nine-tailed fox will appear in Zhuzhu. However, the two share the same demon seed. Bairuoxi hummed softly, then glanced at Musian, hesitated, and said softly, Mu Lang, I want to go back to the Sword Palace for a period of time from today to break through the Yuhua realm. Musian nodded and said, this is a good thing, you don't have to worry about me, with Sister Mengru and others here, there won't be any big problems. The problem is that I am worried because they are here. Bairuoxi's lotus steps lightly, the red plums dotted on the white palace skirt make the beauty's fair skin more crystal clear, as beautiful as translucent. Wei Mengru quietly turned into a dark shadow and left quietly, giving the two people private space to get along. Bairuoxi unconsciously walked to Musian, raised her hand and gently tapped his chest. The next moment, her white palace skirt was almost half stained with black patterns, and her delicate temperament was mixed with a touch of lightness, like a plum blossom blooming in the snow. She stood upright, and her slender hands gathered her long curly hair, vaguely revealing a black mole on the right side of the delicate collarbone. It was just a simple action, but it made Musian subconsciously hold his breath and concentrate, intoxicated by this peerless and gorgeous demeanor. Mu Lang, why don't you come back to the Sword Palace with me? She raised her head and said softly with her beautiful eyes as gentle as water. There are still a lot of resources left by me in the Sword Palace, enough for you to practice to the state of enlightenment. Why do I feel like you want to lock me up in a small dark room? Musian's eyes flickered slightly, and she smiled and said, you won't need to stay in seclusion for long, you will be out soon, not to mention that I have to go to the Lan family after this, which is not very convenient. The Lan family's ancestral worship meeting is still nearly a month away, Bairuoxi said faintly. Then, she sighed softly and said, are you worried that I will lock you up in the basement? Musian shook his head and said softly, you can't talk to anyone during your seclusion, and I have nothing to do in the Sword Palace alone, right? Then when I finish my practice, how about Mu Lang go to the Sword Palace with me? Miss Bai's ulterior motives were revealed. Musian hesitated. Bairuoxi's beautiful eyes immediately shone with tears. She bit her lower lip and said sadly, since leaving Tianqian City, Mu Lang has become increasingly indifferent to me. Everyone is attracted by Mu Lang's body, but I really love Mu Lang. Now you can't even satisfy this little wish of mine. Musian was immediately confused. If you cry like this, Sister Mengro will probably think that I bullied you. Musian looked down at this stunning face. I don't know if it's because of the influence of the Fox clan's body, but this tearful look is actually indescribably charming. Wet eyes, biting red lips. You look shy and timid, looking at you eagerly, making people want to hold you in their hands and take care of you. From this angle, you can also see the plump and upright chest under the clothes that is almost difficult to cover. Musian's breathing became a little faster. She raised her hand to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes and said softly, okay, when you finish your retreat, I will go to the Sword Palace with you. Really? Bairuoxi clapped her hands lightly on her chest and smiled, that's great, Mu Lang is so nice. Musian put one hand around Bairuoxi's slender waist and held her in his arms. The other hand gently stroked her silky hair, saying in his heart that a woman's tears are indeed a lie. Just now she cried so much that I felt pity for her. But now there was not a single tear left. Mr. Mu, I'm going to meditate in the cave first. If anything happens, come to me after a while. Bairuoxi blushed, broke away from Musian's arms, and whispered with slightly lowered eyes. The queen of the demon realm did not take away the hydrangea flower that opened up the cave, so they could naturally enter the cave freely. Musian hummed, brushed away a strand of hair that fell on Guazi's face, lowered his head and kissed her. Bairuoxi's pretty face was slightly red, but there was a sweet light in her eyes. She turned around and turned into a shadow, entering the cave. What do you think? You were attached to me just now, and you should be able to feel his breath, right? Bairuoxi suddenly asked softly in her heart when she stepped into the cave. Gong Lianyu snorted softly, her cold, arrogant and beautiful face showing a faint blush, but her voice was still cold. I'm not very interested in the relationship between men and women, so don't call me out casually next time. Bairuoxi showed a faint smile but did not answer. The last time she called Gong Lianyu, it happened to be when Musian was having an intimate relationship with her. The palace owner at that time looked very comfortable. It's just that this woman's character would never admit that she would be pleased by a young monk in the god-refining realm to the point where she subconsciously wanted to give in to him. But it doesn't matter what Gong Lianyu thinks. After the retreat in the Sword Palace is over and Mu Lang is brought back to the Sword Palace, the palace owner will feel the same feeling as before every day. At that time, she will naturally give in. Bairuoxi showed a charming and gentle smile. After watching Bairuoxi leave, Musian stretched out and said casually, Sister Mengru, you didn't peek just now, did you? Not far from Musian, Wei Mengru, wearing a yellow skirt, leaned against her side. The yellow skirt was covered with a gorgeous silk robe, which swayed from both sides with the cold wind, revealing her plump, slender, and smooth legs. Wei Mengru snorted and said lightly, "I'm not interested in spying on other people's intimacy." After a pause, he added, "But I can more or less hear your conversation." Musian looked back at her and said with a smile, "I wasn't intimate with Ruoxi just now." Wei Mengru smoothed her dress that was messed up by the wind, and without looking at the young master, she said calmly, "Why are you explaining to me?" She paused and continued, "Are you really going to follow her to the Sword Palace from now on?" Ruoxi obviously has other purposes. It is impossible for a smart person like the young master not to notice it. It would be fun if she really locked her up in a dark room, Wei Mengru thought silently in her heart. On the one hand, she wanted to protect the young master, but on the other hand, she also hoped that her master, who was a strategist, would really overturn one day. That would be interesting. I know what Sister Mengru is thinking. Musian looked back at her and said with a smile, "I don't believe that anyone in this world can plot me. I naturally know Ruoxi's thoughts, but since Ruoxi insists on taking me to the Sword Palace, then let her go. It doesn't hurt to go." Wei Mengru sneered, "Don't just cry and beg me in the dark room to save you. I am the Lord of Heaven, you actually said that I would cry and beg you to come and save me? Ridiculous." "Sister Mengru, come here." Musian raised his fingers towards Wei Mengru. Wei Mengru hesitated for a moment, but still approached the young master and glanced sideways at him. "What's wrong?" Musian was not polite and put his arms around Wei Mengru's slender waist. Then, under her cold gaze, he lowered his head and kissed her on the cheek. He smiled and said, "If I really get locked up in a dark room, then of course I have to wait. Sister Mengru came to save me, otherwise even if I don't care, what will happen if Sister Mengru is lonely?" Wei Meng's soft and white face was quickly stained with a hint of red, and she glared at the frivolous young master shyly. "After all, this is the place where Ruoxi once lived. It's better not to be intimate here, let's go back to the cave first," Wei Mengru whispered. "Being intimate with the young master in a place like this will make people feel unspeakably guilty. After all, this was the ancestral land where Ruoxi was born and raised." Musian hummed, "That's fine." Thinking of the magic of transformation shown by the Queen of the Demon Realm today, he soon couldn't help but feel a little more hopeful. I wonder if the Queen of the Demon Realm asked him to find her tonight. Is she planning to do some cosplay? While Musian was thinking about this, he took the hand of the maid and entered the hydrangea cave together. After meditating in his room for nearly an hour, Musian slowly opened his eyes. The time agreed with the Queen of the Demon World has almost arrived. Musian got out of bed, pushed open the door, pretended to raise his hands and stretched his waist. At the same time, his spiritual sense scanned the surrounding area. Well, it looks like Ruoxi and the others are meditating and practicing. Musian Yujian left the room, walked through a quiet path, and soon saw a large hall in the distance. Boom boom. "Your Majesty, I came here as promised." Musian knocked on the palace door and then said. The hall fell into a brief silence. After a while, the woman inside said Musian gently pushed open the door of the palace, and what came into view was a gorgeous woman in a black dress. The silk belt around her waist outlined her slender waist, and her mysterious light golden eyes revealed an inexplicable majesty. The gorgeous black dress made the woman even more stunning. Her full chest was outlined by the belt around her waist, and her plump, snow-white long legs were slightly close together under the black skirt. Her crystal-clear jade feet were stepping on a pair of black, small embroidered shoes inlaid with gold and silver threads. She was holding a piece of chicken leg meat in her hand that she didn't know where she got from. Sect Master's sister. Musian was shocked. But then he quickly reacted. No, it was Shizixuan. She played the role of the Sect Master's sister right from the start. You are worthy of being His Majesty. You really understand my XP. Musian suppressed the heat in his heart, looked up, and said softly, "Can I come in?" The queen of the demon realm raised her eyebrows slightly, her beautiful golden eyes were rippling like water, and she looked at the boy in surprise. Then, she smiled unconsciously. "Come in," she said lightly. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 430. Why do I feel that His Majesty is not in a good state tonight? Is it because he has transformed into the appearance of the sect master's sister, so he imitates the sect master's sister's usual behavior and demeanor? Musian walked into the hall and looked at the woman in black dress in front of the throne, and couldn't help but say secretly in his heart. The door behind him quietly closed by itself, and the fire in the hall lit up silently. Musian asked, "I wonder why His Majesty asked me to come here tonight. In any case, he should try to find out the purpose of this woman first. The only thing he can be sure of now is that Shizixuan is indeed the third seat of the heavenly court, but Musian has no idea about the other party's thoughts. Moreover, the queen of the demon realm also knows how to read minds. He can't figure out the other party, but the other party looks at his whole body and leaves nothing, even his underwear, which is too passive. Musian doesn't like to be passive. Of course, it's okay to be passive when being intimate with others." Facing Musian's question, the queen of the demon realm did not answer, but smiled and said softly, "Why do you think I came to you? Why did you throw the question to me?" Musian pondered for a moment, and tentatively said, "Since you asked me to visit you late at night, I think it must be something important." The queen of the demon realm smiled brightly, "Can you be more specific?" Musian pondered for a moment. In front of the throne, a tall beauty in a black dress looked down at the boy, and the boy's figure was reflected in her beautiful light golden eyes. Aware of the woman's sight, Musian quickly came back to his senses and chose to give up thinking, saying helplessly, "Since your Majesty knows how to read minds, why ask me such questions?" What did he think of? The queen of the demon realm could know just by reading minds, so why did she ask him? And he really didn't know why the queen of the demon realm wanted to see him tonight, although when he came, Musian thought of a lot about the development of N.T.R. The queen of the demon realm smiled softly and said, "Although I know how to read minds, what you think in your heart is one thing, and what you say is another. People are often creatures who say one thing and mean another." That's right, just like when Musian was with other girls before. If Master Mew always said whatever he thought in his heart, he would probably not be in the land of the Fox clan now, but in the basement of some protagonist. Sometimes, when you coax a girl, the other party doesn't care whether what you say is true or not. As long as you coax her well, she will be happy and excited even if she knows it's a lie. Master Mew knows this truth well. "Your Majesty, don't you plan to change back to your original appearance?" Musian suddenly asked. The queen of the demon realm chatted with him in this manner, which always made him feel a little weird. The queen of the demon realm raised her eyebrows slightly and smiled faintly, "Don't you like the way I look now?" Musian couldn't help but secretly observe her again after hearing this. The queen of the demon realm, who had transformed into Shang Yanfei, was now wearing a black dress, with a charming face, stunning beauty, skin whiter than snow, and a pair of pearl-polished earrings. She had a dignified and elegant temperament, revealing a sense of mystery that was enough to attract younger boys. After taking a few glances, his eyes involuntarily fell on Shang Yanfei's chest, where the black lapel with embroidered patterns could not cover it, revealing a ravine whose depth was difficult to see. Although not as good as Ruoxi and Yekingzin, she had an excellent shape and was just the right amount of fullness and uprightness. Ahem. Musian suddenly coughed twice and said, "Your Majesty has misunderstood. I respect the sect master more than I admire her." The queen of the demon realm raised her eyebrows slightly and said lightly, "But your heart tells me, the sect master's sister has a great figure and her lips look very soft. I wonder what it would taste like." "No, I'm not, I didn't." Musian shook his head to deny. He really didn't have such thoughts just now. Oh? Then look into my eyes and talk. The faint voice of the queen of the demon realm came from the throne. Musian raised his head and then stared into the woman's beautiful golden eyes. For a moment, his eyes were slightly clear, and there was a feeling of extreme familiarity in his mind, but it felt extremely strange. This feeling was like he had a dream one day. In the dream, he went to a restaurant. The restaurant was surrounded by grey fog and people came and went everywhere. Then for a moment, he stared into the eyes of a strange girl. At that moment, his heart suddenly beat fast. He took a fancy to this girl and wanted to ask her name. But at this moment, he suddenly woke up from his dream, forgetting everything he had experienced in the dream, and only remembered those gentle eyes. Very familiar, yet strange feeling. Is it because I have seen her several times, but I have forgotten her, or what? Why do I feel that her eyes look so familiar? As soon as this thought flashed through Musian's mind, he suddenly smelled an intoxicating fragrance lingering at the tip of his nose. When he suddenly woke up, he saw that the queen of the demon world had walked in front of him in delicate and small embroidered shoes. The face of the country is charming, mature, and sexy, as if all the beauty in the world can be reflected in her. The white legs under the black dress are particularly conspicuous, and the runes like silk threads are outlined on the right leg. The bright and beautiful eyes look at him with a faint smile. This leg is so white, bah, I seem to have seen this rune somewhere before. Musian looked at the smooth and tender thighs and couldn't help thinking in his heart. He quickly composed himself, calmed himself down, and said, "What is the writing on this leg?" "Don't worry about it, it's just some runes." Sensing the boy's direct gaze, she chuckled. The moment she raised her fingertips, the runes quietly gathered together and turned into a black butterfly imprinted on her right leg. Immediately afterwards, concubine Shangyan held Musian's face and said with a smile, "Do you dare to say that you were not thinking about being intimate with your sect master just now?" The delicate fair face, the attractive mouth as red as a cherry, and the beautiful eyes that seemed to be playing in the world made Musian's heart tremble. She slowly took half a step closer, put a weak hand on his chest, stood on tiptoes, leaned close to his ear, and whispered softly, "If I didn't have any thoughts just now, what about now? This woman is really a goblin, but the sect leader's sister will not do such a seductive move." Musian felt a little shaken, but silence is golden. "But in fact, it's not just you, even I will also have some interest in you now." The queen of the demon realm suddenly chuckled and took 2 steps back, speaking to break the previous ambiguous atmosphere. "Your Majesty, you mean that my 9-tailed fox body will also attract you?" Musian asked subconsciously. The queen of the demon realm stared at Musian quietly and smiled casually, "So be it." When Musian heard this, he couldn't help but be startled. Although he has the body of a 9-tailed celestial fox, he is only in the realm of refining gods. He should not be able to enchant even the great powers of the Tao realm. The queen of the demon realm took a deep look at this naturally charming young man and said calmly, "The body of the 9-tailed celestial fox cannot charm me, or even make me succumb to you, but it can make even a powerful person in the Hedeo realm. Everyone has a crush on you, just like the fairy charm of Yaokai Holy Land. People subconsciously feel close to you as soon as you open your mouth. This charm can be passive or active." Musian thought for a moment and asked, "So, I can actively release my natural charm, or I can restrain it and reduce the effect of the charm?" The queen of the demon realm hummed. "Your Majesty, can you give me some advice?" Musian asked because he didn't understand. "Let me see the 9-tailed sky fox's magic first." The queen of the demon realm paused and continued, "Well, let's try using the body of the 9-tailed fox to turn back your age by 10 years. "Why 10 years? Musian looked at the queen of the demon realm strangely and began to seriously doubt her purpose. He secretly activated the magic, and the magic of transformation enveloped his body, turning him into the appearance of the pretty young man in the past. His face was still handsome, and his nose was high, but he looked a bit childish. The body exudes a faint and charming aura. If Byruoxi or Waymengru saw the scene at this moment, their hearts would beat faster. Even if Musian had done any bad things before, they would be able to forgive them. The aura exuding from Musian's natural charm at this moment has such charm. Then what? Musian asked. The queen of the demon realm's eyes were soft, as if they were shining with water. After staring silently for a long time, she suddenly came back to her senses, hummed softly, and nodded. Then he leaned in front of the throne, with his left leg crossed over his right leg, his jade feet hooked on the black embroidered shoes, his white chin slightly raised, and his eyes looking at the young man playfully. Then lick it clean for me. Musian looked at her in shock and took half a step back. The queen of the demon realm looked at him with a slight smile and said leisurely, "It's just a joke, don't take it seriously." "But I don't think the happy look in your eyes just now seemed like you were joking." Musian was shocked, looking at the beauty in black dress secretly with strange eyes. Unexpectedly, Shizixuan actually has such a hobby. Not only does he like to cosplay with others, but he even practices. Not only does he practice, he also seems to have some sexual tendencies. Sensing Musian's extremely shocked look, the queen of the demon realm smiled nonchalantly. "In fact, whether it is the charm of me or the nine-tailed fox, it should be natural and able to control it independently. If you know how to restrain your own charm, Qing Emperor will be pleased to see it in the future. If you don't know how to restrain your charming aura, I'm afraid it will cause you a lot of trouble when you return to Dongzhou. For example, it is not impossible to be attracted by the eldest lady of some powerful families in Dongzhou and forcefully recruit her as her husband," the queen of the demon realm said seriously as she looked at the big boy in the palace. "If natural charm is also graded from 9th grade to 1st grade, then Musian's is the 1st grade. In the past, there were naturally charming bodies in Dongzhou, but the highest level was only at the 6th level. And a person with a naturally charming body, and a male, is completely unprecedented. Thinking about it carefully, the queen of the demon realm seems to be able to freely restrain her charm, so when I first saw her, I had the urge to kneel under her pomegranate skirt, but then I never had similar thoughts, because she later deliberately restrained herself." Musian looked thoughtful and said, "Then how should I restrain my charming aura?" The queen of the demon realm smiled lightly and said, "The charming aura cannot be suppressed because your cauldron is too small to contain it, so it will continue to overflow. Just open up a new cave in your cauldron." "Do you know what is the biggest difference between refining the gods and returning to the void?" Musian said with a smile, "Of course I know this. The void returning realm can open up caves, and it can even open up caves in the cauldron within the body. The more caves there are, the bigger the spiritual energy will be. Although he is not in the realm of returning to the virtual world yet, all the protagonists around him have already refined their spirits and returned to the virtual world." When Musian was practicing dual cultivation, he could feel the number of caves in their cauldron. Usually monks can open up to 3 to 4 caves in the cauldron. Your senior sister's cauldron has a total of 10 caves. She completely hides her aura in the cave and keeps her aura introverted, the queen of the demon realm said. Musian pondered for a moment and said, "But I am still in the realm of refining gods, and I cannot open a cave in the cauldron." "Of course your own cauldron cannot contain the huge charming aura of innate charm, but who told you that you must hide it in your own cauldron?" The queen of the demon realm held her fragrant chin in her hand and tilted her head slightly to look at him. "This action is very seductive." A pair of white breasts on her chest stretch out the black dress. After Musian pondered for a moment, his eyes suddenly lit up. "A natural furnace cauldron. That's right, he doesn't need to wait for the refining of the gods to return to the void before expanding the cave. He only needs to store all the charming aura emitted in the natural furnace. After all, his natural furnace will always be a level higher than his own level. But in this case, if I have an intimate relationship with Ruoxi and the others in the future, wouldn't the spiritual energy given to them also be mixed with charming spiritual energy? Will this be equivalent to charming? Musian quickly calmed down and became a little more worried. Then relief came quickly. Anyway, the fish pond is already in such a mess now, it doesn't matter if it gets a little messy. At most, they love themselves more after absorbing the charming aura, which is okay. Anyway, the goodwill is already max, can it be higher? And I think that as the majestic Lord of Heaven, if I have to, I would just give up my body and escape my spiritual consciousness into heaven to take refuge. After this, if all the charming aura is stored in the natural furnace, then you have to restrain yourself and can no longer be casually intimate with other strange girls. The queen of the demon realm nodded with satisfaction. Under her black gauze skirt, she sat with her long and sexy legs crossed, and her feet in black embroidered shoes were swaying. You can try it now, while I'm still here, I can protect you. When Musian heard the words, he immediately nodded, then found an open space aside and sat cross-legged, trying to communicate with the body of the nine-tailed fox in his body, and inject the charming aura it exuded into the natural furnace cauldron. The pink mist intertwined with the aura of heaven, and he suddenly heard an uncontrollable soft voice coming from the bottom of his heart. As the charming aura and heavenly aura mixed together and poured into the natural furnace cauldron, Yekingzin's delicate body trembled, and she slowly opened her beautiful eyes filled with drunkenness. Sister Ye, I am pouring the charming aura of the nine-tailed sky fox into the natural furnace. Please bear with it a little longer. Musian said from the bottom of his heart. Yekingzin's cheeks were hot, she subconsciously bent her legs and said angrily, can't you explain this to me in advance? I'm sorry, or Sister Ye should leave the Tian furnace first, Musian tried to ask. No, no need. Yekingzin's breathing became heavier and her cheeks flushed even more. She almost couldn't help but rush out of the natural furnace and rush towards Musian, but she still restrained herself. She rubbed her leg slightly, bit her lip, and calmed down her breath. You transfer yours, I didn't, it's okay, don't worry. After all, he is also a powerful person in the Hedeo realm. Wouldn't it be too embarrassing if Musian was forced out of the Tian cauldron by this little trick? What's more, when the charming aura is injected into the Tiansheng furnace, she will not suffer any damage, but the charming aura is too tempting and will make her subconsciously want to seek pleasure. But if you can endure it, it can be regarded as a way to hone your mental strength. However, she is a person who must avenge her vengeance. Today's rash sneak attack will happen after he finishes transferring his spiritual energy. Snored. Yekingzin pursed her lips, with a hint of brilliance in her coquettish red eyes. Upon seeing this, Musian no longer hesitated and began to transfer a large amount of the charming spiritual energy in his cauldron, controlling these charming spiritual energy to enter the natural furnace cauldron. After nearly half an hour, he slowly opened his eyes and breathed a sigh of relief. Those dark eyes had completely lost their original charming aura. The queen of the demon realm looked down at the young man in the audience and said with a smile, it seems to be going well. Musian nodded slightly, stood up, straightened his robes, and said, thank you, Your Majesty, for your advice. He has been thinking about what to do with this charming aura on his body before. He can't wander around Dongzhou with this damn charm in the future, can he? If this is the case, I'm afraid it will really cause a lot of trouble. If it weren't for the Demon Queen, he might not be able to think of a solution so quickly. The Queen of the Demon Realm smiled slightly, aren't you going to try the effect of today's natural furnace cauldron? Musian was startled and said hesitantly, but the natural furnace cauldron is a passive body, and I cannot actively use the spiritual energy in it. He looked at the beautiful woman in dress in front of the throne and seemed to realize something. At this time, Musian saw her curling her fingers, so he subconsciously walked towards the throne, and finally came to the woman's side. She stood up from the throne, bent down and half crouched in front of Musian, raised her hand to caress the boy's handsome face, and his figure was reflected in her beautiful pale golden eyes, which had an indescribable charm. The next moment, his collar was pulled hard by the queen of the demon realm. She was half kneeling beside the boy, her red lips about to touch his lips. Boom! At this moment, a deafening sound like thunder came from the entire cave, indicating the owner's anger. Musian's eyes were slightly stunned, and he suddenly turned his head to look at the closed palace door. The corners of the queen of the demon realm's mouth curled up in amusement, and her beautiful pale golden eyes were extremely dark. She glanced sideways. The next moment, the palace door fell down. The charming woman in a dark green dress looked up at the bitch in the palace and sneered, "Concubine Shang Yan. You really can't hold your breath anymore. The 5K ends today, please vote." Bang bang bang. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 431. There is no doubt that Musian is a very smart man. This intelligence is not limited to calculations, he can even control people's hearts. A woman's heart. So far, Mr. Mew has many hearts under his control, with Ruoxi and Sister Ye being the biggest. He also knows the personalities of the little sharks in the fish pond who are still developing. Therefore, he is often able to make the right judgment at the right time. Even if he occasionally overturns, he can make up for it with his sweet words. Because sometimes a car rollover is expected by him. Although with the increase in the number of mosasaurs in the fish pond and the increase in the combat power of the small sharks, the possibility of overturning has also increased slightly, but it is still within the range of maneuverability. Even the little sharks in the fish pond seem to have had the dangerous idea of turning Mr. Mew into a velvet ball recently. Not only the little shark, Musian always felt that several mosasaurs seemed to have had similar thoughts. Musian had even gone to the small black room in the Yaokai Holy Land with Yao Meng before. No, that's not that small in fact. The black room was just a place where Yao Meng practiced quietly, and she didn't really have any dangerous thoughts. After all, even if he offends Yao Meng with his unintentional words or small actions, he can still comfort or please her in the future and say some words of apology to satisfy Sister Kingdi. But now the situation is different. The Queen of the Demon Realm has the ability to read minds. No matter what Mr. Mew says to make women happy, the Queen of the Demon Realm can immediately know what he is thinking. What's more, Musian did not expect the scene at all. So when he saw the Queen of the Demon Realm standing at the entrance of the palace, his brain was in a state of shutdown. Master Zixuan is at the entrance of the hall, then who is this person behind me? The answer is actually very clear. Musian woke up from his daze, his pupils shrank, and he looked at the woman in skirt and robe kneeling in front of him in surprise. Concubine Shang Yan. Is she the sect leader herself? In fact, this is something that is easy to think of. It would make people feel stupid if they didn't even think that she was concubine Shang Yan. After all, the other party didn't have any disguise at all. He faced Musian as the sect leader. But who would have thought that the elder sister who was supposed to be in the Lianji sect would actually appear in the cave of the Queen of the Demon Realm? You must know that this is the Demon Realm, not Dongzhou. The symbol of Dongzhou is the Lianji sect, and the leader of the Lianji sect descended on the Demon Realm without any warning. If the demon cultivators in the Demon Realm know about it, it will most likely cause trouble. The demon world is strongly dissatisfied. Musian looked at concubine Shang Yan in disbelief, and his throat rolled. Are you the sect master, then? A slightly difficult voice came from his mouth. Concubine Shang Yan's intoxicating beautiful eyes were filled with light golden light, and she joked, I have never denied it. She paused for a moment and asked casually, it's you, why do you think I am her? Musian suddenly lost his ability. How would he answer this? I originally planned to play role-playing with Her Majesty the Queen, asking her to play you, the sect leader's sister, and then I would suppress her? Who would have known that the cosplayer of the sect master was actually the sect master himself? But fortunately, he hadn't done anything too outrageous to concubine Shangyan before, otherwise it would be really hard to explain. Let the queen of the demon world look like concubine Shangyan, and then make love with her. If the disciples in the sect knew about this, Mr. Mu would probably die on the spot. Fortunately, before Muzian could answer, the queen of the demon realm immediately took over the fire, her beautiful eyes slightly cold. Aren't you always unwilling to leave the Lianji sect? Why are you so interested in sneaking into the demon realm today, and even sneaking into it? Come from my cave. If she hadn't used the mark of the demon world on Muzian's body to search for his location when she returned to the land of the Fox clan, she might not have noticed that concubine Shangyan had sneaked into her cave. Behind the queen of the demon realm, several small snakes condensed from pink spiritual energy appeared. She looked down at the woman in front of the throne and said slowly, "If this matter spreads to the demon world, do you want to start another war with the demon world? I am afraid that Dongzhou will be in chaos and there will be no peace." "This big hat is really good, my sister," Mu Jian couldn't help but complain in his heart. Concubine Shangyan's eyes were calm and her seductive red lips evoked a soft smile. Then, an elegant and calm voice came from the empty hall, "If I hadn't come, I might not have known that the master of the demon world had secretly transformed into me to seduce my sect disciples. If the demon cultivators in the demon world find out about this, I'm afraid the demon world will really be in chaos." Concubine Shangyan pressed her fingertips against her red lips and pondered for a moment. She stared at the big boy in front of her and suddenly smiled. "I'm afraid that when the time comes, my disciple will be regarded by the demon cultivators as a beautiful woman who brings trouble to the demon world. Bar. Just like the fox concubine from a dynasty in Dongzhou. Is my role positioning reversed? Shouldn't it be you who are the troublesome beauties?" Mu Jian complained silently in his heart, and then glanced at the 5 characters the chosen heroine on his personal interface. There was silence. If I have to say it, the description of beauties bring disaster doesn't seem to be a problem. Oh. The queen of the demon realm raised a frivolous curve on her lips and her eyes were cold. "If he confuses me as a beauty, it will cause chaos in the demon realm. Then there will be no problem if he deceives the leader of the Lianji sect. So do you really define me as a beautiful woman?" Mu Jian felt guilty and wanted to vomit, but considering the current situation, in the end, silence was golden and he just wanted to be a little transparent. However, the queen of the demon realm obviously didn't want him to be a little transparent, and stared at Muzian with clear and charming eyes. She smiled softly, "Being intimate with the leader of the Lianji sect in my cave, Mu Lang really likes people who seek excitement. If I knew she was the sect leader's sister, I wouldn't have been able to talk to her so casually, or even have any thoughts." Muzian was feeling furious in his heart, but he maintained a helpless smile on the outside. It is naturally impossible to say that he has no thoughts about concubine Shangyan. From the time he was in Tianqian City, there has always been the shadow of this woman manipulating his back. Even after he entered the Lianji sect, he was able to see Yao Meng. There is also the shadow of concubine Shangyan behind her. But Muzian still doesn't know what the other party's purpose is. Simply like him. Muzian prides himself on being a handsome boy. This is not narcissistic, but is recognized. Even when the reputation was not good in the past, people often said, "This Muzian is nothing but his face." Even if there was no Mu family in this life, it would not be difficult for Muzian to make a living, not to mention the blessing of the 9-tailed sky fox, which is naturally charming and makes it easier to arouse the love in a girl's heart. But concubine Shangyan is the head of the Lianji section. What kind of genius or beautiful young man has she never seen before? What's more, if the other party really has thoughts about him, how could he secretly help him find several big sisters who can lick and hug his thighs? It's impossible for you to be like Chiener and like others to cuckold you, right? Chiener's hobbies are so weird, there shouldn't be many people in the world who are the same as her, let alone the sect leader. The queen of the demon realm glanced at Musian quite unexpectedly, as if she had learned something through mind reading, and looked frivolously at the magnificent sect leader. What did I think? I thought he was seduced by you, but I didn't expect that he actually recognized you as me. No wonder I'm so close to you. The voice was soft and charming, but there was an undisguised provocation. The underlying meaning of this statement is, you think he likes you, but in fact he just mistook you for me. What he covets is not your body, but mine. The hall fell into a brief silence. With the calm demeanor of the sect master, he probably wouldn't care about this provocation. Musian breathed a sigh of relief. Concubine Shangyan has been in union for a long time, longer than the queen of the demon realm. Before the queen of the demon realm was in union, concubine Shangyan was already the empress standing in the world, and the immortal legend of Liangyi sect has been passed down to this day. The queen of the demon realm glanced at Musian, with a smile on her face, and said quietly, Sect Master Shang, do you want to guess what he is thinking about now and who he is thinking about? Concubine Shangyan looked back at the queen of the demon realm in front of the palace door, with a mocking smile flashing across her pair of mysterious and magnificent golden eyes. Then, she set her sights on Musian. The moment the two of them locked eyes, for some reason, Musian had a vague premonition. Close your eyes, she said softly. Musian hesitated and said, what's wrong? Just close it. Do you think I will harm you? Shang Yanfei said softly, her tone as soft and calm as usual, but it revealed unquestionable majesty. However, Musian had experienced many battles, and his awareness of gank prevention was obviously fully developed. It was impossible for him to expose his weak side in front of the queen of the demon realm, so he immediately declined politely and said, Sister, if you have anything to say, just say it directly. Disciples are all ears. Concubine Shangyan stopped talking nonsense with him and put one hand on the back of Musian's head. Under the gaze of the queen of the demon realm, she lowered her head and kissed Musian's lips gently with her soft and cool lips. The moment their lips and teeth touched, Musian felt an extremely familiar feeling. That feeling made him miss it so much that he couldn't help but indulge in it. He subconsciously stretched out his hands to wrap his arms around the plump and soft waist and feel the sect master. The tenderness of the delicate body. However, at the next moment, a chill suddenly appeared on his back. He woke up instantly and opened his eyes suddenly. The atmosphere in the cave had already dropped to freezing point unconsciously. Since you can read minds. Concubine Shangyan looked down at the big boy in her arms, and then smiled brightly at the queen of the demon realm, then why not try reading the mind again and see who he is thinking about now. Today's first update is 3K, and the second update will be in the evening, with a minimum guarantee of 4K or more. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 432. What is Musian thinking now? In fact, even without the ability to read minds, the queen of the demon realm can guess roughly. Even though the queen of the demon realm is the enemy of Dongzhou and even regards Shang Yanfei as her mortal enemy, she has to admit that the leader of Liangyi sect does have the charm to attract any opposite sex. Before the queen of the demon realm had yet to achieve the state of harmony, Shang Yanfei had already reached the state of harmony. She had heard the first generation of the demon emperor mention Shang Yanfei more than once. When the first generation of the demon emperor started a war against Dongzhou, the first thing he focused on was the movements of Liangyi sect. To be precise, it was the movements of Shang Yanfei. In the past, there were only two people in the state of harmony in Dongzhou. The restricted area was a paradise and did not participate in any fight in Jizhu, while Liangyi sect was the symbol of Dongzhou. The leader who founded Liangyi sect and even cultivated Linglong, who was in the state of harmony, was naturally regarded as the most difficult enemy by the first generation of the Demon Emperor. He couldn't figure out why this gorgeous woman had stayed in Dongzhou and never ascended to heaven. The ultimate goal of a cultivator's practice is to become an immortal and ascend to heaven, but Shang Yanfei seems to have no interest in becoming an immortal. Even when the path to becoming an immortal appeared in the past, she never left Dongzhou. She is always shrouded in mystery, and even the first generation of demon kings don't know when she has achieved enlightenment. Such a woman who is shrouded in mystery will naturally attract the pursuit of countless cultivators, especially young cultivators. For a child of Musian's age, the mysterious color of Shang Yanfei is an indescribable temptation, enough to make him involuntarily attracted by Shang Yanfei, and even want to go deeper into it to find out. What's more, Shang Yanfei took the initiative to kiss him before. In short, even a proud person like the Demon Queen is a little afraid of Shang Yanfei. But fear does not mean fear, and it will not make the Queen of the Demon Realm remain silent at this moment, watching the person she likes being N.T.R in front of her with a smile. Although I have never used mind reading, I think I can guess what he is thinking. Concubine Shang Yan reached out and gently stroked Musian's face, staring at the big boy in front of her, and his expression that could not be held back at the moment. She raised her red lips, raised a touch of joy, and whispered, "Is it more comfortable to kiss me or the Queen of the Demon Realm?" Before Musian answered, she smiled lightly and said, "I guess what he is thinking now is, kissing me is more pleasant. What do you think?" She slightly turned her eyes, and the cold eyes of the Queen of the Demon Realm were reflected in her beautiful light golden eyes. Boom! In the hall, accompanied by a deafening roar, the entire ground was shaking violently. In the void behind the Queen of the Demon Realm, the earthly python silently emerged from it. No, rather than a python, it is more like a dragon, with a gorgeous purple-pink color all over, and a pair of golden beast eyes as majestic and charming as golden pupils. The Queen of the Demon Realm looked indifferent, and the spiritual energy flowing in the air burned in an instant, and the flames were raging. She did not use the forbidden method, but just casually raised her green jade fingers. In the moment of snapping her fingers, the extremely enchanting pink light enveloped concubine Shang Yan, captivating people, as if people would be dazed at the first sight of it. This is the method that the Queen of the Demon Realm had cultivated before she merged with the Tao. It is called Swanyan Charm Fire. The charm fire has no temperature, but is icy and piercing. At the moment it appeared, the temperature in the entire hall dropped in an instant, as if it would freeze people's skin. Musian looked at the charm fire in shock, thinking, "Your Majesty, you gods are fighting, what if an AoE sends me away?" The next moment, the Swanyan charm fire fell towards concubine Shang Yan. At the same time, the earthly python bound Musian while swimming and brought him back to the side of the Queen of the Demon Realm. Boom! The breath of the creation of the world permeated the entire hall, and the mysterious yin charm fire almost enveloped Shang Yanfei, bursting out with an extremely terrifying brilliance. Although he was very confident in the strength of the sect master's sister, Musian couldn't help but sweat for her. Don't worry, she won't die, and this body is just a wisp of spiritual consciousness that she has differentiated. Her body cannot be separated from the Lianji section. As if knowing what Musian was thinking, Shi Zixuan's arrogant and sexy voice came from the side. At the same time, the earthly python carefully placed Musian on the ground, and Shi Zixuan took a half step forward and blocked in front of Musian. The Queen of the Demon Realm actually never fought with Shang Yanfei, but when the first generation of the Demon King was alive in the past, whenever he mentioned Dongzhou, he would always mention Shang Yanfei's name. The cultivation in the demon world is extremely cruel, and the strong are respected. Therefore, since childhood, the Demon Queen has remembered the name of Shang Yanfei. Now that she has evolved from childhood to the ultimate form, the first person she wants to fight is Shang Yanfei. She believes that even if there is only a trace of spiritual consciousness, Shang Yanfei cannot be defeated so easily. Facts have proved that the judgment of the demon queen is correct. When the Swanyan charm fire dissipated, the temperature was still cold. A woman stood on the throne in the hall, like a banished immortal from the ancient times, with peerless beauty and no rival in the world. She was wearing a black dress, with a classical and quiet face, and her plump chest supported the clothes up and down. The long legs with golden ratios were outlined under the skirt. It was extremely beautiful, but not glamorous, enough to make people subconsciously indulge in this peerless grace. It was just that the gorgeous dress had a lot of shatters, revealing some of her fair skin. Was she injured? Musian's mind moved slightly. At this moment, the whole world fell silent. Everything around him turned grey. Musian was grey, everything in the hall was grey, even the charming appearance of the queen of the demon realm, also turned grey. Only Shang Yanfei was colorful. When Musian suddenly woke up, he found that Shang Yanfei's dress had been repaired long ago, without any signs of damage. Time goes back. The queen of the demon realm narrowed her beautiful eyes and said softly. Musian's mind moved. Time goes back, doesn't that mean that the master is also in the Yahua realm? He knew that one of the signs of the Yahua realm is time going back. When you reach the Yahua realm, you can change the rules of heaven and earth, and even rewrite time, go upstream along the long river of time, and be immortal. The queen of the demon realm raised her head proudly, with a contemptuous attitude, and chuckled, "No, you are not immortal, you just comprehended the Dao of time." Shang Yanfei smiled without comment. Proving her guess, there was a trace of contempt in the beautiful eyes of the queen of the demon realm, and she said arrogantly, "If I remember correctly, you were already in the state of harmony with the Dao before I resonated with the Dao. Now that I have achieved harmony with the Dao, you are still spinning in the same place. What if I surpass you in the future?" Shang Yanfei smiled lightly and said, "If you can be immortal, it is your fate." This indifferent attitude made the queen of the demon realm look a little unhappy. One of the reasons why she hated this woman was that she always looked so calm and indifferent. "Your spiritual consciousness can't stop me. Take advantage of my good mood and get out of this cave. This is the place where I love him," the queen of the demon realm said coldly. However, Shang Yanfei seemed to have heard something interesting and chuckled, "The place of love between you and him. What about the Green Emperor? You are keeping him in the cave now, and even plotting something bad, aren't you cheating with him, Beep?" A trace of anger flashed in the eyes of the queen of the demon realm, and it was obvious that she was touched. The queen of the demon realm is such a proud existence. From the past to the present, there is nothing she can't get as long as she sets her eyes on it. However, she has been in seclusion for less than half a year, and after waking up, Musian has already married, and even now wears the engagement ring given to him by the Green Emperor. It's only been less than half a year. If she stays in seclusion for another 1 or 2 years, maybe Musian's children can crawl on the ground. He likes me, and I like him. As for the Green Emperor," the queen of the demon realm snorted coldly, "it's just that he took advantage of my retreat and played some tricks to confuse him." Shang Yanfei said lightly, "The marriage that day was a mutual consent between my disciple and the Green Emperor. Since you know how to read minds, don't you know his true feelings? If you must say, you are the third party in the middle." Hearing this, the queen of the demon realm immediately retorted, "Since you knew that he was married, how could the leader of the Lianji sect be intimate with him before? Don't say that his marriage with the Green Emperor was just a fake marriage in the past. Even if it was real, what does it matter? There is no one I can't get," the queen of the demon realm sneered. This statement has already made it clear, he is a married man, so what? I just want NTR. The ruler of the demon world and the leader of the Lianji sect looked at each other from a distance. The former was charming and seductive, while the latter was always calm and mysterious. Both of them were very pleasing to the eye, especially when Musian stood beside the demon queen. He could smell the sweet scent of the woman. However, at this moment, Musian did not seem to be in the mood to appreciate her at all. Not good. If they continue to quarrel, the demon queen will definitely vent her anger on me. Calm down, I am the master of the heaven, can't I suppress just 2 women? There must be a way. Musian's brain flashed with thoughts as fast as lightning. However, at this moment, he suddenly noticed the demon queen's playful smile, so he silently gave up thinking. With the mind reading, he had no room for maneuver. Forget it, I'm glad you're okay. As the atmosphere became increasingly tense, at this moment, accompanied by a light laugh, concubine Shangyan walked down the steps from the front of the throne. Under Musian's hesitant gaze, she opened her lips slightly and said quietly, Ling Long asked me to confirm it because he was worried about your safety. But since the queen of the demon world is protecting you, there must be no problem. Musian subconsciously looked back at concubine Shangyan's eyes, and for a moment, he was a little confused. What does the sect leader's sister mean to him? If you say that she likes him, it seems that there is nothing wrong with it. She even took the initiative to kiss him before. But if she really likes him, why is she willing to let the queen of the demon world protect him now? But no matter what, seeing that concubine Shangyan did not continue to argue with the queen of the demon realm, Musian breathed a sigh of relief and immediately raised his hand and bowed, saying, Disciple, I respectfully send you off, master. She is indeed the most unpredictable shark in my pond, he sighed in his heart. Humph, she is really generous. Looking at the woman leaving, the queen of the demon realm could not help but sneer. The sect master is only concerned about the disciples of the section he came here because he is worried about me. Musian shook his head helplessly. This was indirectly telling the queen of the demon realm, you think too much about the relationship between me and the sect master's sister. I am just a disciple of Lianji sect and I don't have any close relationship with the sect master's sister. Since when did the sect master of Lianji sect take the initiative to kiss a sect disciple, and it can be called an ordinary relationship? The queen of the demon realm glanced at Musian with a smile, dissatisfaction in her tone. Musian shrugged and said, you ridiculed her first, so I guess you angered her. It's not that he wants to tell the truth, but whatever he thinks in his heart will be read anyway, so it's better to say it directly. The queen of the demon realm was unexpectedly not annoyed at all, but just glanced at Musian meaningfully. So far, she has never seen Shang Yanfei fight with any great power in the true sense, because no one has ever done anything to make her angry. The last time I took action, it was because Musian faked his death in the southern wilderness and the western regions. And this time, it was also because of Musian. A woman with a deep mind, but a very obvious weakness. This is really interesting. The queen of the demon realm stared into Musian's eyes with a playful smile on her face. Musian hesitated and said, aren't you angry? Why should I be angry? If I really angered her today, it would be my gain, right? The queen of the demon realm smiled faintly. As for the kiss, it was just a light touch of mouth to mouth, there's nothing to be angry about. The demon world is much more open than I thought. Musian was shocked. At this time, the queen of the demon realm changed the subject, glanced at Musian with her charming eyes, and said softly, how come you mistook concubine Shangyan for me today? Just by looking at her personality, you should have guessed that she was concubine Shangyan herself, right? Musian couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard this. Your Majesty, did you expect the sect master to come to your cave in this way? The queen of the demon realm was speechless for a moment. Forget it. She changed the subject lightly, when I stepped into the cave just now, I didn't detect Gong Lianyu's breath. Is she not here? Ruoxi left the demon world first and went to the sword palace to practice in seclusion, Musian explained. The queen of the demon realm said oh, and a glimmer of light flashed in her beautiful eyes. The palace master is not here, the green emperor is not here, and the woman Shang Yanfei is gone too, so. After a brief silence, the queen of the demon realm slightly bent over, half knelt in front of Musian, stretched out her hand and gently stroked his hair, and smiled charmingly, "Follow me to the house first." Musian left the hall with the queen of the demon realm. The hall was obviously riddled with holes because of the previous fight between the two, but at this moment, everything here was quietly restored to its original state. Behind the hall was an extremely luxurious bedroom. The tall, soft, and sexy queen of the demon realm held Musian's little hand and came to the bedroom. Then she tilted her head to look at the big boy next to her and couldn't help licking her red lips. Aware of the queen of the demon realm's charming eyes, Musian's heart was shaken, but he still maintained a trace of calmness and was about to take off the green lotus ring on his finger. Wearing the ring of the Green Emperor's sister and being intimate with others still made him feel a little weird. However, at this time, the queen of the demon realm reached out and pressed his hand, gently holding it, and chuckled, "Just wear it like this, after all, this is the wedding ring that the Green Emperor gave you. The problem is that I always feel a little guilty when I wear it like this and get intimate with you," Musian thought to himself. The most important thing is that he doesn't know if this green lotus ring will have any strange abilities, and he doesn't want to take this risk. However, the next moment, the charming and enchanting figure of the queen of the demon realm has disappeared from his sight, and what appeared in Musian's sight was a holy and flawless fairy. She was barefaced with a pair of white jade feet, and the light blue noble dress wrapped her seductive figure. The white rope tied her long hair was untied by her hand, and her long black hair fell to her calves like a waterfall. She was beautiful but not gaudy, and it was unexpected that people could not have the slightest thought of blasphemy. Yao Meng smiled, half crouched in front of Musian, and reached out to touch his face. Her temperament was holy and elegant, but her eyes were full of charming and seductive light. "This is the order from your sister Kingdi. Today's 7.5K completed." So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 433. The next day, early in the morning, Musian lazily got out of bed and yawned lazily, changing his robe next to the clothes rack. Shizixuan was wearing a red dress with a shawl, wrapping her seductive figure, looming under the blazing charcoal fire, which made her more charming and seductive, and also made the already sexy and charming red dress more bright red and attractive like maple leaves in autumn. Her long hair was scattered, and her hair was messy on her face, revealing a bit of laziness. Her beautiful eyes looked at the boy frivolously and smiled charmingly. "I have to go back to the demon world today to deal with the government affairs that have accumulated recently." Musian looked regretful and said, "Although I am a little reluctant, I am afraid we can only say goodbye. After this, when I have free time, I will communicate with His Majesty through the bronze mirror and ask for advice on the method of cultivating immortals." The queen of the demon world smiled faintly in her eyes and said, "But I can see that you are saying in your heart, although this beautiful snake is great, she is in the state of harmony after all. It's okay if it's just one night. If she does this every night in the future, I'm afraid that sooner or later, I, the owner of the fish pond, will be dragged into the water and eaten up by her. When we reach harmony in the future, I must make her cry and beg for mercy." "What is a fish pond? How do you plan to make me beg for mercy?" The queen of the demon realm yawned lazily, propped herself up, and blinked at Musian in a puzzled manner. Musian. SHT, SHT, this damn mind-reading technique is really an enemy for life. Musian silently covered his face. Fortunately, the queen of the demon realm did not dwell on this topic, but quickly changed the topic. "I see that you are now at the 7th level of soul refining. The first seed has a cultivation method that can be used for 2 people to practice together. If you go back to the demon world with me, I can ask her for it. In half a month, you can reach the peak of soul refining." The queen of the demon realm sat in front of the bed, swinging her tender white feet, her seductive red lips slightly parted, with a charming smile that turned everyone upside down. "You can reach the peak of soul refining in half a month." Musian's mind moved slightly, but he shook his head slowly. "Your Majesty, in the past, People often said that cultivating immortals requires one step at a time and laying a solid foundation. If I take this shortcut, cultivating immortals requires one step at a time, but cultivation between two people does not require it, the Queen of the Demon Realm said lightly. Musian showed a reserved look on his face and said, "But I am not that kind of person." Before he finished speaking, the tall beauty had already walked in front of the young man in long boots, breathing like orchids in his ears. "That's not what you said last night." The seductive breath lingered at the tip of Musian's nose, and he slowly followed it. The moment he locked eyes with the Queen of the Demon Realm, he seemed to see a faint pink mist through those seductive and charming eyes. The Queen of the Demon Realm's enchanting eyes looked down, and the next moment, Musian casually embraced her plump and slender waist. Thinking carefully, "It's okay if it's only half a month." In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed unknowingly. In the bedroom deep in the demon world. On a bed covered by a curtain, if someone happened to pass by here, they would see a young man hugging a woman's plump waist under the curtain illuminated by candlelight, lying sideways in her arms, and the two seemed to be sleeping soundly. But no matter what, no one would happen to pass by here. After all, after the Queen of the Demon Realm brought Musian back to the Demon Realm half a month ago, she ordered the servants in the bedroom to be cleared out, and no one except the first seat could enter the bedroom. In fact, it stands to reason that neither the Queen of the Demon Realm nor Musian need sleep to restore their mental strength. But Musian is in the realm of spiritual cultivation after all, and even if he doesn't need to rest, he still needs meditation to restore his mental strength. He has been in a bad mood every night these days, and naturally he is physically and mentally exhausted. Of course, being tired is exhausting, but it is still worth it. At least now Musian has successfully stepped into the peak of spiritual cultivation with the help of the Queen of the Demon Realm. Shang Yanfei wore a gorgeous black dress, with messy hair, and gently hugged Musian's neck, allowing him to lean on her arms, with a slight arc of joy at the corner of her mouth. Obviously, she turned into Shang Yanfei again last night, and was intimate with her sect disciples. "Your Majesty, I really have to leave the demon world today," Musian said softly. The Queen of the Demon Realm turned her head to look at him, put her arms around his neck, let Musian bury his face in her arms, and said in a gentle and persuasive way, "In fact, you can also choose to stay here. Maybe in 2 or 3 months, you will be able to refine your spirit and return to the void." Musian smiled and said, "I promised the nine-tailed sky fox that I would help her to be reborn. It's time to fulfill my promise. And since you have a place in the heavenly court, as long as you resonate with Yuan Luo, you can impact the Yahua realm and jump out of the rules of heaven and earth. If I stay here, it will eventually delay your practice. During this period, you can also try to impact this hurdle," Musian continued to persuade. "Anyway, now the fish pond is already a big shark that wants to drag him, the owner of the fish pond, into the water and hide it privately, so Musian simply tried every means to raise the big shark bigger. And we can't let Sister Kingdee dominate alone. Otherwise, if multi-threaded operations go wrong one day, and he is locked up in a dark room, it will be over. There won't be anyone who can save him then." Although Musian thinks Sister Kingdee won't go too far, unless she knows that Musian has been intimate with the Queen of the Demon Realm every day, and she even took time out of her busy schedule to find Sister Mengru to comfort her, and even wore the Qinglian wedding ring. In short, if the Queen of the Demon Realm can ascend to heaven, at least Mr. Mu can have some protection, so that he will not be locked up in a small dark room without any ability to protect himself. It's much harder to become a feather and ascend than you think. The Queen of the Demon Realm stroked the boy's hair and said softly, "The Qing Emperor's ability to emerge smoothly is partly due to his strength, but more importantly due to the blessing of luck. In this world, except for creatures such as spirit dragons who are born with great luck, I am afraid there is no one else. People can guarantee that they will ascend smoothly if they hit the feathering stage. Sister Kingdee can do it, so can you. The Zixuan I know is an arrogant ruler of the demon world. She is one of the few beauties in the world who has stepped into the Hedeo realm in just 1,000 years. Musian looked at his master Zixuan's charming eyes with a smile and said, "You have the qualifications to become a hero and ascend to heaven. I believe in your potential." The voluptuous beauty in the red dress narrowed her beautiful eyes, and looked straight at him with a pair of seductive eyes, her beautiful eyes full of emotion. She suddenly smiled, "That's natural. After all, I am the third seed." Musian smiled and said, "Yes." In the heaven, a golden light lit up on the third throne. The character fight flashed, and a coquettish red dot appeared between the queen of the demon realm's eyebrows. Musian suddenly thought, and the ring connecting to heaven lit up. In his spiritual world, a majestic palace rose from the ground, and countless palaces in the sky quietly emerged, solemn, and the rich spiritual energy seemed to you can feel it with your eyes closed. Musian's spiritual consciousness escaped into the heaven. He was dressed in a white robe and had his hands behind his back, as if he was the Lord of Heaven descending into the world and taking charge of the 9 heavens. Not far in front of him, 9 runes appeared. Each rune corresponds to a throne, and at the end of the 9 thrones, there is an ancient and solemn bronze throne. In front of the third throne, which was engraved with the word fight, a pink light was shining at the moment, as if it was consulting something. "Admit it," Musian said softly. On the third seat, a name quickly appeared, Zixuan. He looked at the scene and nodded with some satisfaction. In this way, even if I am locked in a dark room by Sister Kingdi one day, I can still count on Zixuan to come and save me. What is strategizing and what is multi-threaded operation? This is the plan of the Lord of Heaven. Even if the sect leader's sister is still alive, she is nothing more than this. Musian closed his eyes silently, and his spiritual consciousness escaped from the heaven, returned to the demon world's palace, returned to the embrace of the demon world queen, and began to think about future plans. The Lan family's ancestor worship meeting is about to begin, but before that, after returning to Dongzhou, you can use the soul locking bell to see where the 9-tailed sky fox's spiritual consciousness is hidden. After rescuing the 9-tailed sky fox's spiritual consciousness and temporarily storing it in the natural furnace, the deal between him and the fox-eared lady was concluded. It's just that this trip to Ian's house may take some effort. Musian has no intention of interfering with the affairs of sisters Lan Mulian and Lan Feiying and their family. He will not interfere with any decision they want to make. He only needs to ensure that their trip goes smoothly. To achieve this, it is obviously not enough for him to rely on himself. So when the time comes, I'm afraid I'll need to use the token of Yaokai Keking. Musian's thoughts suddenly changed, and he felt a strong reaction coming from the personal interface, so he clicked on the personal interface. Under those many titles, a bright red and extremely eerie title appeared at some point. The sky-swallowing monster body. The earthly python is a monster that devours all things in the world. It can swallow the essence of all things in the world and turn it into its own use. Swallowing the sky demon body? If I remember correctly, this should be Zixuan's physique. Musian's eyes became a little more interested. If I remember correctly, the original Zixuan could even devour the first-generation demon emperor who was in the same realm as her, and even refine their essence for her own use. I wonder how much of the abilities of the sky-swallowing demonic body he can unleash? Zixuan, what is the maximum level of monks that your sky-swallowing monster body can swallow? Musian looked at the title on his personal interface. After pondering for a while, he couldn't help but ask. It's not that difficult for those who are in the same realm as me. As for the feathering realm that's higher up, I haven't tried it yet. The queen of the demon realm immediately answered. Then, she asked suspiciously, "Why do you ask this so politely?" "It's okay, I'm just curious." Musian smiled casually. The tall and sexy beauty in the red dress seemed to want to ask something else. Her attractive red mouth opened and closed, seeming to exude endless charm. But at this moment, Muzian took the lead and asked. Since you can devour monks of the same realm, then monks of a lower realm than you are naturally not a problem, right? That's natural. The queen of the demon realm glanced at Muzian in confusion. Why do you suddenly ask such a natural thing? Then can you devour me too? Muzian asked sincerely with a somewhat doubtful tone. The queen of the demon realm glanced at Muzian charmingly, hugged him tighter, and said softly, even if I could, I wouldn't be able to part with it. The sky-swallowing demon body is really powerful. Muzian sighed, and finally poked his head out of the demon queen's arms, sniffing the beauty's wine-like fragrance, and then lightly tapped the demon queen's red lips with his fingertips. But I don't think your physique can swallow even me. The queen of the demon realm raised her eyebrows slightly and said, are you questioning me? Yeah, I don't think you can do it. Muzian smiled. The two gazed at each other, and the queen of the demon realm noticed a trace of amusement in Muzian's eyes. She followed Muzian's gaze in confusion and found that the other man was staring at her red and attractive mouth. The queen of the demon realm seemed to understand something, her pretty face turned red, and she gave him a charming look. What a beautiful thought! She glanced at him with a look that seemed to be filled with hatred, and then she raised her hand to close the curtain that Muzian had opened earlier. What? Muzian suddenly realized the problem. Laughter like silver bells echoed in the palace. The queen of the demon realm ignored the maid outside the palace, just stretched out her hand to touch Muzian's face, and said with a smile, after this, I will be in seclusion for some time to attack the realm of ascension, so you have to make up for all the love you have owed me over the years, right? Outside the palace, the first person was standing there quietly alone, seeming to be thinking about life. As the top of the 13 seats in the demon realm, she has been following Her Majesty the Queen since before she became a disciple. She is naturally loyal to His Majesty and even worships him. Rather, most demon cultivators in the entire demon world almost blindly worship His Majesty. However, in the past few days, Number 1 Xiang felt that his outlook on life was collapsing. It would be fine if he was only interested in a young monk, but His Majesty has been letting Muzian become what he was in the past half-month. If this spreads outside, how will others view your Majesty? The Queen of the Demon Realm is a woman with dangerous hobbies. If such a scandal spreads, the image of the demon world will be greatly damaged. The First Lady took a deep breath and exhaled it slowly. She quietly left the entrance of the palace without disturbing the Queen of the Demon Realm. However, as soon as she left the palace and walked out of the palace, several demon cultivators immediately surrounded her. Master Miaoan, how is your Majesty doing in seclusion during this time? Could it be that she has reached the threshold of the feathering realm and is trying the feathering realm? Questions echoed outside the palace. All the ministers from the demon world were worried and looking forward to the fact that His Majesty suddenly announced that he would go into seclusion half a month ago. The worry is that the Queen of the demon world will fail to ascend and the demon world will be leaderless. Even though ancient Emperor Longxiu is here, he is a martial arts fanatic and is not very interested in the position of Demon Emperor. He is not even seen in person on weekdays. And I look forward to, if His Majesty really ascends to heaven one day, the threat that the Qing Emperor brought to Dongzhou will no longer exist. It's no wonder that these ministers are so worried now. Except for the First Lady Shi Miaoan, no one knows what the Queen of the Demon Realm is doing in the palace. The aura on your Majesty's body is much stronger than before. Now she is preparing the arrangements for her ascension. During this period, no one must be allowed to set foot. Anyone who disobeys the order will be killed without mercy. After hearing the monster's questioning, Shi Miaoan answered in a calm tone. Okay, all of you, please step back. My presence here is enough. Then, she waved her beautiful hand and asked all the demon cultivators to retreat. After all the demon cultivators had retreated, Shi Miaoan rubbed her eyebrows with a tired look on her face. Thinking of the scene of singing and dancing every night during this period, she felt a little helpless in her heart. She was now beginning to wonder if Musian was really someone sent by Dongzhou to confuse His Majesty. In the past, a generation of dynasties in Dongzhou were destroyed by the Fox clan in the demon world. Dongzhou's luck was damaged, and it took nearly 100 years to gradually recover. But she never expected that now it would be the demon world's turn. Could it be that the nine-tailed fox is really so terrifying that even His Majesty was confused? But if I remember correctly, when Musian came, the aura exuding from his body should be that of someone refining the 7th level of God. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be able to charm His Majesty to the point where the government is in ruins. In the half-month since Musian returned to the demon world with his master Zixuan, Shi Miaoan has never seen him again. Although the queen of the demon realm said that he had some insights in his spiritual practice and was practicing in seclusion, but every night, through the curtains of the palace, Shi Miaoan could always vaguely see the moving scenery under the curtains, like a shadow puppet show. Even she, a demon cultivator who had no interest in love, could not help but be tempted, and even asked, "What is the aura of the Tian furnace cauldron?" Such a rebellious and dangerous thought. The aura of heaven mixed with the aura of charm is too tempting. That's all, Your Majesty doesn't need to deal with such trivial matters in the demon world anyway. Shi Miaoan quickly shook her head, but there was a bit of dissatisfaction in her beautiful eyes. Calculating the time, today should be the day when Musian will leave the demon world. After all, in a while, the Lan family's ancestor worship meeting will begin. With Musian's temperament, it is impossible to let the Lan family go. Sisters don't care. Although His Majesty sympathizes with Musian, Musian will leave today no matter what. It's better to leave quickly. Although we are only in the God-refining realm, it will be troublesome if we really make His Majesty fascinated. Shi Miaoan sighed quietly in her heart. At this moment, she suddenly felt a terrifying spiritual energy surging out from the palace behind her. The spiritual energy penetrated between the heaven and the earth, and it was so majestic that it seemed vaguely like a giant python swallowing the heaven and the earth. Roaring in the clouds. Shi Miaoan was startled, and she suddenly raised her head and looked at the gloomy sky. Has Her Majesty the Queen touched the path of ascension? She murmured in disbelief. Could it be that His Majesty is really meditating and practicing during this period? Shi Miaoan subconsciously turned her head to look at the bedroom behind her, but when she saw the vague scene under the curtain, she felt even more confused. It seems that His Majesty is not meditating and practicing well. He is just being intimate with Musian every day. Suddenly he touches the path of Yahweh. Shi Miaoan stared at the two people under the curtain, her beautiful eyes flickered for a moment, and suddenly she seemed to understand something, and whispered, "Natural furnace cauldron." Musian's natural furnace cauldron is completely different from any natural furnace cauldron in the past. No wonder His Majesty cares about him so much. Now everything makes sense. At first, she always thought that His Majesty was obsessed with beauty and couldn't extricate himself, and even had some strange special hobbies, but now it seems that His Majesty is far-sighted. Lianji sect. The woman in the moon-white dress was leaning against the door with a sword in her arms. Her face was covered with a veil, revealing a cold temperament that no one should disturb. Even with the veil, one could still tell at a glance that she must be a stunning beauty, but her cold attitude was enough to dissuade countless people. "Sister, let's go," Lan Feiying said indifferently, looking at the letter from the Lan clan that her sister had just received not long ago. Lan Murian hesitated slightly, and then hummed. "Sister, are you waiting for that guy to come back?" Lan Feiying suddenly asked. Seeing Lan Murian silent, Lan Feiying continued, "It may not be a good thing to let him go with you. He is backed by the Qing Emperor, but this is a family affair between us and the Lan clan. If he comes to the Lan family, he will inevitably cause trouble." Lan Feiying was silent. In fact, what her sister said was not wrong. However, on the one hand, she did not want her junior brother to go with her, but on the other hand, She wanted to see him again before going to the Lan clan. But no one knows where that guy went after he was promoted to the nine-tailed heavenly fox, and there is still no news. But in the future, he may be able to transform into various appearances, including the appearance of the boy that night. If I don't see him after returning from the Blue Clan this time, Lan Mulian played with the summoning talisman in her hand, and seemed to think of some interesting ways to play. She chuckled, and then quickly restrained herself and returned to her aloof attitude. Let's go to the Blue Clan. The thorn that the Blue Clan left in the hearts of the sisters when they were young should now be removed together. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 434. In the afternoon, Musian walked out of the palace holding his waist. Under Shi Miaoan's reception, she sat in a side hall of the main hall and drank tea, waiting for Wei Mengru, who had been meditating for the past few days, to come out. Taking a sip of tea, he clicked on his personal interface and looked at the current introduction, unable to help but fall into thought. Name, Musian. Role positioning, the chosen heroine. Physique, chaos body, possessing more than one physique. Weapon, measuring ruler. Luck value, 95, most dangers can be avoided, and you will definitely gain something when entering ancient ruins. Now his luck value is 95, so he should be a very lucky person, but why do he feel like bad luck still happens to him so often? Sister Mengru, why do you think my great luck is different from others? Musian did not look back, but he had already smelled Wei Mengru's scent, and she was standing quietly beside him at some point. Although she is wearing a dazzling yellow dress, it is difficult to detect because she hides her own aura. As if blending with the air, her graceful figure disappears and appears, making it difficult to see her true form. Wei Mengru raised her eyebrows slightly and said in surprise, "You can actually detect my existence." After refining the gods and returning to the void, Wei Mengru's cauldron opened up 10 caves and merged the 10 caves together to create a large cave in the cauldron, with extremely powerful spiritual energy. Even if she didn't deliberately hide her aura, it stands to reason that the young master shouldn't be able to detect it so easily. That's because you used the bomb. Musian came to Wei Mengru's side, sniffed it slightly, raised his head and said with a smile, "Is this looming bomb?" Wei Mengru glanced at the young master lightly, "Your nose is really sharp." Luming bomb is a relatively unpopular bomb in Dongzhou. Its fragrance is as cool as mint. Because of its light aroma, not many women use this bomb. He is indeed a scumbag who went out with different women every day. He is indeed well informed, the maid sneered. Musian shrugged, "I rarely see anyone using this ointment. Sister Mengru is the first one, so I will naturally pay more attention to it." After a moment of silence, Wei Mengru said calmly with a straight face, "It's better to save these words for the queen of the demon realm. I'm just your maid. It doesn't matter if you don't need to please me." Although she had not seen any intimacy between Musian and the queen of the demon realm with her own eyes, the fact that she had not seen it did not mean that she had not heard of it. There were a lot of scandals in the demon palace these days. For example, there are rumors such as Musian is a vixen sent by Dongzhou to confuse his majesty, or be wary of Dongzhou's trap on beautiful men. She didn't know if this was groundless, but with the young master's current natural calculus, she wouldn't be surprised if he could attract any kind of vixen. The maid lady has almost become commonplace. Musian smiled and took Wei Mengru's little hand. "Sister Mengru, who is willing to serve the young master, still has to find a way to please me. Thinking about it carefully, it seems that we have been without Sisu for almost half a month." Wei Mengru's ice-like delicate face was instantly dyed with an intoxicating blush. Sensing the young master's teasing eyes, she immediately glanced at him with disdain and said coldly, "Who wants to be intimate with a bug like you? Don't be too sentimental." Musian played with the teacup in his hand and glanced at her. "Sister Mengru, don't you want to know what has become of my natural furnace?" Wei Mengru snorted, no matter how well packaged the Tiansheng furnace cauldron is, it is still inferior. I have no interest in it. Musian raised his eyebrows slightly and started fishing. Sister Mengru, didn't you notice that the original charm on my body has disappeared? Logically speaking, the charm should be passively emitted and difficult to control. Wei Mengru's attention was really attracted, and she looked at the handsome young man suspiciously. It's true to say that, when she saw the young master before, her heartbeat would speed up uncontrollably, and she would even have the idea of getting close to him, but that was because the young master's nine-tailed sky fox exuded a desire for the opposite sex. Charm. But now, she no longer has such uncontrollable thoughts about the young master. How did you do it? Wei Mengru couldn't help but ask. Musian smiled and deliberately said, you will know after you go back and practice with me. If you don't want to say it, forget it, I'm not interested either, Wei Mengru said lightly. Forget it, Musian nodded and drank tea by himself. The hall fell into a brief silence, and the master and servant did not continue talking. It was just that the maid's eyes flickered slightly, and she subconsciously moved her neck several times, wanting to turn her head to look at the young master, but she held back for the sake of face and maintained her cold attitude. Mr. Mew, the chariot is already waiting outside. At this time, a demon attendant walked into the hall and said respectfully. Outside the palace gate, a chariot pulled by a nine-headed dragon stopped outside the demon palace. It was so powerful that it attracted the attention of many nearby demon cultivators along the way. The nine-headed dragon pulls the chariot, which must be enjoyed by adults with high status in the demon world. Except for the 13 seats in the demon world, only the ancient princes from the taboo places in the demon world can use such noble chariots when traveling. Could it be that a descendant of some ancient emperor came out of seclusion? Many people are secretly guessing. Just when everyone was guessing, Musian and Wei Mengru got on the chariot and headed towards the Dongzhou family. In the blink of an eye, several days passed. On this day, at the border of Jiyuan in Dongzhou, a chariot shone as brightly as the sun, exuding an extraordinary aura, and was rapidly moving towards the border between the demon world and Dongzhou. In front of the border between the demon world and Dongzhou, several major demon tribes in the border area were sitting in an attic, drinking tea and discussing. Soon, a demon cultivator noticed the chariot that was like a golden light moving towards Dongzhou. The elder of the Liukiun tribe frowned slightly and said, which demon tribe's royal descendant is going out? It's such a big scene. Another bird demon on the side was about to use his spiritual sense to scan the chariot, but at this time, a gorgeous female demon cultivator next to him immediately raised his hand to stop it. Hongyu, why are you stopping me? Do you know the owner of the chariot? The bird demon frowned and asked. The demon cultivator called Hongyu raised his eyebrows and smiled faintly. A while ago, many demon cultivators of the demon-devouring rhino clan died, and they suddenly fell from the top demon clan in the border area to the bottom. If you don't want to sit in this position, you can do whatever you want. I will stop you, but it's all for your own good. After this, several demon elders in the border area looked at each other with a little surprise in their eyes. What do you mean? Asked a demon cultivator next to him. At this time, the bird demon next to him reacted very quickly and suddenly whispered, if I remember correctly, the 8th seat of the demon world had investigated the demon-devouring rhino clan before and cleared up many internal hidden dangers. Could it be that he offended the owner of this carriage? After this, many demon cultivators present were slightly surprised. If it weren't for Elder Hongyu, I'm afraid I would have accidentally offended him today. We are all demons in the border area, so we should naturally help each other, Hongyu said with a smile. Now that their clan has just taken the position of the leader of the border demon clan, they are weak and alone, so naturally they will win over as many demons as possible. Her distant relative is the 8th seat of the demon world. She also learned about the young man from him a few days ago. Combined with the strange destruction of the devouring demon rhino clan, she guessed the identity of the owner of the chariot. But this is really a big deal. How much favor does His Majesty owe Muzian that he treats him so well? The demons in the border area looked at the chariot as it swept towards Dongzhou like a blazing golden light, and fell into a long contemplation. Such a scene, not only in the demon world, when the chariot turned into a stream of light and swept towards Dongzhou, it also attracted the attention of major forces in Dongzhou. Many cultivators in various major sects, Taoist traditions, and holy places were secretly observing the chariot. Many people from ancient families speculated that perhaps the eldest son of a forbidden place in Dongzhou was born, which caused such a big commotion. But soon these speculations were covered up by the increasingly lively ancestor worship meeting of the Lan family. The area controlled by the Lan family in Dongzhou is extremely vast. The hundreds of major sects and Taoist sects all respect the Lan family. After each Lan family ancestor worship meeting, the statues of the ancestors of the Lan family always guide the future direction of the Lan family, and even help them find the ancient relics circulating in Dongzhou. And it is also at this time that the major Taoist sects often send people to the Lan family to congratulate. As the day approaches, the cultivators sent by various forces have been flying swords or riding warships in the past few days to congratulate the Lan family. After the ancestor worship meeting, the ancestors of the Lan family will send down an oracle, and anyone can glimpse the oracle. Once it is cracked, they can get a great immortal fate and soar to the sky. You must know that the ancestors of the Lan family were also powerful overlords in the past. The blessings he brought are absolutely an irresistible temptation for cultivators. One afternoon on this day, a luxurious carriage pulled by a 9-headed dragon flew in the air and sped towards the direction of the Lan family in Dongzhou, attracting people's attention along the way. Such a luxurious carriage, the carriage made of special spiritual ore alone, is in short supply, not to mention that the dragon is extremely arrogant. In this world, except for the ruler of the demon world, it will only submit to the people it recognizes. It is enough to imagine that the owner of the carriage must have a great background and his own talent is definitely not low, otherwise the dragon would not submit. When the carriage passed through an aerial attic, the eyes of a young man in the aerial attic were also attracted. The man's appearance was not handsome, but he was also good-looking. He exuded a faint golden light and had an extraordinary aura. It's interesting. Even the immortals on land who have returned to the void realm don't have such a grand ceremony, the young man whispered to himself, playing with an exquisitely crafted jade slip that appeared in his palm. The jade slip in his hand emitted a faint glow, and a calm voice came from the glow, "There are not many people in the entire Dongzhou who can sit on the chariot. It's better not to cause trouble and practice in peace." "I know that." The young man smiled indifferently. "If I remember correctly, the Lan family will hold an ancestor worship meeting in a while. By then, the ancestors of the Lan family will probably give a lot of immortal fate. And I heard that one of the purposes of the Lan family this time is to let the genius sisters recognize their ancestors. It is rumored that Lan Murian is the first person of the younger generation in Zhuzhou, and her sister." He paused and continued, "As the chosen ones, their strength is naturally extraordinary. They are a pair of top-notch sisters." When he said this, the young man's eyes became more thoughtful and looked in the direction of the Lan family. "If I remember correctly, the chariot just now also went in the direction of the Lan family. Have you forgotten the reminder I gave you before? It's better not to cause trouble. I always feel that the luck bestowed on you by the heavenly Dao has decreased a lot recently. It is very likely that there is something wrong with the heavenly Dao." The old man's advice came from the jade slip. "Don't worry, I know my limits." The young man couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. "I will practice well and return to the void as soon as possible." After a pause, he continued, "If I don't return to the void as soon as possible, I'm afraid I will have to go back to that broken village sooner or later." Huang Weifeng is a young man who walked out of the mountains. When he was young, his family was poor and poor. He was free and his parents died. The village where he lived was almost full of old, weak, sick, and disabled people. Some were blind, some were deaf, and some were said to have been chased by enemies when they were young and had a limp. Fortunately, he was a time traveler, so the original owner experienced those bitter and cold days alone. He did not experience too many hard days and left the village. In short, the villagers there could not even have enough to eat 3 meals a day. If it were not for the man who walked out of the village and happened to be the current president of the Don Chamber of Commerce, and the president's daughter proposed to help the villagers, I am afraid that many disabled people in the village would starve to death when winter came. Of course, now the past has nothing to do with him. He has been favored by the heaven, and he accidentally got a jade slip in that broken village. The jade slip inherited the inheritance of Deokutianzun, and the spiritual consciousness in the jade slip in his hand now is the spirit beast that followed Deokutianzun, the holy light Kylin. Anyway, his parents died when he was young, and he could only spend his life in that broken village. Now that he is favored by the heaven, he naturally does not have to go back to that broken village that exudes the aura of death. Huang Weifeng looked up in the direction of the Lan family, with a faint smile on his face. In order to refine the spirit and return to the void as soon as possible, I will naturally find a way to plunder all available resources. I have heard that the sisters of the Lan family are extremely beautiful, so I can take a look at them during this ancestor worship ceremony, and also see what kind of woman Lan Feiying, who is also a chosen person like me, is. Holy Light Kirin was experienced and had seen through Huang Weifeng's thoughts. He hurriedly advised, being chosen by heaven does not mean that you are the only one in the world. You are too sharp. Although you have never lost to the same realm, the Lan family is a place where crouching tigers and hidden dragons are hidden. If you cause trouble, it will not be only the cultivators in the refining spirit realm who will deal with you. Huang Weifeng smiled and said, Senior Kirin, you can rest assured. I know my own limits and will not offend people easily. After that, he ignored the advice of Holy Light Kirin and summoned an ordinary flying sword from the ring. He flew away from the sky attic and flew towards the direction of the Lan family. Soul-locking bell, this thing really reacted in Dongzhou. In the luxurious carriage, Musian held Wei Mengru's slender waist with one hand, holding the beauty in his arms, and playing with the ordinary-looking ancient bell in his other hand. There was still some time before the Lan family's ancestor worship, so Musian left the demon world early, naturally to fulfill the agreement with the nine-tailed sky fox. From the moment he stepped into the territory of Dongzhou, he took out the ancient bell and tried to search for the hiding place of the nine-tailed sky fox's spiritual consciousness. And the ancient bell guided them to the north of Dongzhou. Dongzhou was quite prosperous, and each ancient family controlled a large area. At this moment, Musian had come to the area controlled by the Lan family. Almost every half an hour, he could see the major sects and Dongzhou families standing on this vast land. These were all forces that submitted to the jurisdiction of the Lan family. In this endless area, Musian also saw an ancient city, where giant stone pillars stood, and on the stone pillars were carved the unparalleled style of the Lan family's ancestors, as well as the miraculous murals of her single-handed suppression of the forbidden land of Dongzhou. On the edge of the murals were also carved text annotations of a certain dynasty in the past. Is this the ancestor of the Lan family? I thought she was a gorgeous empress in the past, but now she has become a pile of yellow earth, Musian said softly with some sighs. His right hand held the maid's hand. The girl's slender white jade hand was soft and smooth. Musian closed his eyes and felt the soft touch of Wei Mengru's hand. Wei Mengru glanced at the young master faintly, pursed her lips, and turned her head slightly to look at the scenery outside the curtain, pretending to be indifferent. Musian had a fight with the maid several times along the way. At the beginning, Wei Mengru maintained a cold attitude, but gradually gave up and let him hold her hand. At the beginning, Musian just expressed his love and longing for the maid very simply. Although he looked disgusted, it was not difficult to see the girl's attitude from the fact that Wei Mengru did not mock the young master as usual. Then, when the carriage was halfway to the Lan family, Wei Mengru felt a warm hand on the back of her hand. Although she wanted to reject the young master to maintain her aloof personality, for some reason, when she was held tightly by the warm hand, she was inexplicably reluctant to let go, so she let the young master hold her hand. Musian held her in his arms and asked with concern, "Sister Mengru, why is your face so hot? Did you catch a cold?" Land gods in the Return to Void realm can become ghosts only after being exposed to the cold. Musian's words were obviously teasing her, which was really disgusting. Wei Mengru's delicate body felt a little hot, and her heart was angry and annoyed, but she didn't dare to look up at the young master at this moment, so she could only whisper, "It's okay." "Ditsuo," did the soul-locking bell respond. Sister Mengru is indeed the king of strong words. She always raises her chin arrogantly when not being intimate, and despises her master like a bug. As a result, she gets cold feet when they start to get intimate. Mu Jian feels secretly happy. The maid lady belongs to the Cold and Tsundere series. When she is arrogant, she can be so cold that she can give people frostbite, but when such a beauty becomes charming, she will exude an extremely alluring appeal and be charming. Musian glanced at the ancient bell that vibrated slightly in his hand and said, "There was some reaction, but it was not very strong. I can only know that it should be near this area. It seems that the nine-tailed sky fox also used some means to hide it." Own spiritual consciousness. Wei Mengru let out an "oh," and then she felt a hand reach into her slender waist in the yellow skirt and squeeze it twice, and then the young man's gentle voice with rich texture came to her ears, "Sister Mengru, please tell me you are so cold, are you still angry with me and blame me for not seeing you much during this time?" Wei Mengru felt angry in her heart. She knew that the young master was deliberately teasing her but could do nothing about it. She was about to push away the random palm with all her strength. At this time, she suddenly seemed to notice something, and couldn't help but glance outside the carriage slightly. Lan Feiying's breath. Musian opened the curtain of the carriage and followed Wei Mengru's line of sight. Looking far into the distance, he saw a dragon bird chariot coming in this direction. Although the chariot is not extremely luxurious, it is quite rare in Dongzhou. But even rarer is the owner of the chariot. As the cold wind blew, the car curtains blew slightly, and what came into view was a charming beauty in a fiery red dress. She has an oval face, her skirt outlines her slender waist, and her fiery red skirt tightly wraps her plump breasts. It seemed that it was because she was too plump, and the carriage swayed slightly, so that her breasts seemed to sway. Sister Feiying is older again, but my evaluation is not as good as Naxi. Musian quietly released his hold on the maid, and was about to send a message to say hello to Lan Feiying. At this time, he suddenly noticed the ground there seemed to be a strange gaze looking at him. He looked around and saw a young man he had never seen before. The man obviously didn't expect Musian's perception to be so strong. A trace of panic flashed in his eyes, and he hurriedly withdrew his gaze and left with his sword. I have never met him, but he seemed to have murderous intentions towards me just now. Musian squinted his eyes and looked at the man who was leaving in a hurry, with a hint of amusement in his eyes. He immediately gave a few instructions to the Void Nightmare, who was obsessed with the Eight Desolations dream picture, and sent it to follow him secretly. At this moment, the chariot in the distance had arrived near Musian. The car curtain slowly opened, and a charming and beautiful face was revealed in the dim light. Lan Feiying was holding a cup of tea in her hand, with charming eyes. She glanced at Wei Mengru, who was sitting next to her young master, and opened the curtain for him, and smiled slightly, as expected. "You came to Ian's house after all." "Sister, I've been talking about you a lot these days when I'm at Ian's house," she continued with a soft voice. "The senior sister is indeed cold on the outside and hot on the inside, just as I expected. She is two different people outside and in private." Musian smiled and said, I'm sorry, I have spent a lot of time refining the Tegzapil these days. Sister Fei Ying always says, "Senior sister, don't you miss me?" Musian then asked. Lan Feiying took a closer look at Musian's handsome face and said with a smile, "You don't need to ask to know the answer to this kind of thing." Seeing the two people's expressions of affection, Wei Mengru's bare hand holding the car curtain became a little heavier subconsciously. Although she always said that she was just the maid beside the young master, seeing this scene, she only felt sour in her heart and couldn't help but glance at Musian. "If you have anything to say, let's go back to Ian's house first. After all, this is not the place to talk." Musian nodded slightly, "Yes, let's go to Ian's house first." Seeing this scene, the maid's brows relaxed, and she looked at Lan Feiying, with an ice-breaking smile on her cold face. "The young master and I will take the first step." Lan Feiying narrowed her eyes and looked at this mere maid. Before Wei Mengru could close the car curtain, Lan Feiying said oops, and the tea she was holding accidentally spilled on the soft cushion. She immediately raised her charming face and said aggrievedly, "I spilled the tea here and the cushions are all wet. Can I go back with you?" The faint smile on Wei Mengru's face suddenly froze. "No." Seeing Musian's subtle expression, Lan Feiying asked softly. Musian subconsciously glanced at the maid, whose expression was so cold that it could give someone frostbite, and coughed slightly. "Well, it's not crowded for 3 people. Since Sister Feiying accidentally spilled the tea, just follow me. Let's go back to Ian's house together." As he spoke, Musian picked up a cup of green tea that was still cold and took a sip. After tasting it carefully, he sighed, "It's really good tea." At this moment, the car door quietly opened, and then the fragrant breeze hit. Musian's left side was soon next to a soft and attractive body. The fiery red dress wrapped the seductive and sexy body. Lan Feiying glanced at the maid next to Musian and said with a smile, "Sorry to bother you. A new week of asking for tickets and blades. The monthly tickets and blades will be reset in 5 days. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 435. The 9-headed dragon pulled the carriage towards the Lan family quickly. The carriage was not small, with 2 rows and a total of 6 seats. However, the 3 people in the carriage were sitting next to each other in the same row. Lan Feiying kept her legs tightly together, and wiped the red dress that was soaked by tea with a handkerchief very patiently. If you look down from Musian's perspective, you can vaguely see the beautiful curves outlined between the beautiful legs. But at this moment, Musian did not seem to have such leisure and elegance. He could feel the cold eyes of the maid next to him. The eyes brought by a return to the virtual realm, coupled with the huge sense of oppression brought by the unique coldness of the maid, made Mr. Mu's scalp numb. Sister Mengro was not good at tea art. Lan Feiying's simple operation had made her angry before. But her identity was a maid, so she could not confront Lan Feiying head-on like Bairuoxi did, so she had to sulk alone. "I saw you looking down at the ground just now, as if you were looking at a male cultivator. Did you find something interesting on him?" At this time, a pleasant and melodious voice floated in the carriage. Lan Feiying's eyes were full of charm, and she stared at him. Musian came back to his senses from his previous thoughts and smiled, "Nothing, I just felt that the talent of that chosen one was similar to that of Sister Feiying, so I was a little interested." Lan Feiying narrowed her eyes and said, "A chosen one with similar talent to mine. That person is probably not only gifted, but also a person with great luck favored by heaven, just like me." Musian glanced at the charming and sexy woman and smiled, "Yes, Sister Feiying was born to be favored by heaven. With similar talent to you, I think her future achievements will not be too low." Lan Feiying smiled charmingly, "That also depends on him being able to practice smoothly all the way. If he dies halfway, there will be no future to speak of. Huang Weifeng could sense Lan Fading, the chosen one, and Lan Fading could naturally sense the other party's existence. Although she didn't know how many chosen ones the heaven had chosen and how difficult they were to deal with, she always stood on Musian's side no matter what. Hearing this, Musian hesitated and said, "Sister Fading, there is something I don't know whether I should ask. Do we have to be so taboo between you and me? If you are so polite, it will make people sad." Lan Fading showed a trace of resentment, glanced at him lightly, and said softly, "Just say whatever you want to say." A charming look, but revealing a lot of tenderness, charming and seductive. This goblin, Musian's heart was shaken, and he resisted the heat in his heart and said, "The heavenly Dao chose Sister Fading as the son of heaven. The purpose is to correct the rules of heaven and earth and clean up the monks who violate the rules of heaven and earth, right?" Musian asked. "I know what you want to say. You and Miss Wei are not within the rules of heaven and earth. You want to ask me if I have not dealt with you all the time, the heavenly Dao will not punish me, right?" Lan Fading's voice was soft, but her slender hand quietly covered the back of Musian's hand. The slender green jade fingers were painted with sexy and beautiful red nail polish, except for the middle fingers of both hands. Wei Mengru glanced at Lan Fading inadvertently. This question was not only of concern to Musian, but also to Wei Mengru, so much so that she forgot Lan Fading's tea art and provocation for a moment, and looked at her intentionally or unintentionally, waiting for Lan Fading's answer. "If I were to deal with you, not to mention that the people around you would not agree, I myself would be reluctant to do so." Lan Fading chuckled and reached out to gently touch Musian's cheek. "How my sister treats you, you should know better than anyone else, right? When you were in Tianqian City, you ruined so many girls, even your maid stayed away from you, and Bai Ruoxi hated you very much. Unlike me, I always treat my brother as before." Her movements were extremely gentle and slow, as if a fine gauze with an excellent touch gently brushed across Musian's face, like a lover flirting, making people feel itchy and wanting to hold her in their arms and love her well. And Wei Mengru, who was innocently caught in the crossfire, glanced at this charming and seductive vixen lightly and said nothing. "What do you mean even the young master's maid stay away from him? Even when the young master was notorious, she always followed the young master like a shadow, but she didn't give him any chance to get close to her. In the past, when he was still in Tianqian City, if Musian dared to be intimate with the maid like today, he would have been kicked out of the carriage. As for whether the heavenly Dao can punish me, I seem to have told you in the past that the heavenly Dao cannot directly interfere in the affairs of Zhu, not to mention that it has had some problems recently." Lan Fading continued on the side. "Will the heavenly Dao also have problems?" Musian moved back slightly to avoid Lan Fading's caress. Young Master Mu felt the icy coldness beside him just now, which was the breath emanating from Wei Mengru. If Lan Fading was not here, Musian had no doubt that Sister Mengru would turn evil on the spot and directly transform into the original witch to lock him up in a small dark room. Lan Fading looked at Musian playfully, and then laughed softly, shaking her body. The next moment, she pressed closer to Musian even more unscrupulously, with her upper body almost completely pressed against Musian's arms, the curve of her full breasts perfect. Wei Mengru looked at the scene coldly. Seeing the vixen hugging the young master's arm tightly and leaning her plump and sexy body against Musian's side, she couldn't help but subconsciously hold the hem of her skirt. Only when she saw Musian's calm demeanor sitting upright did her eyes relax a little. Of the three paths of heaven, earth, and man, only the path of heaven has its own will. The will of the path of heaven is the will of Zhu. If the will of the creatures of Zhu is shaken, the path of heaven will naturally have problems. After explaining, Lan Fading complained again. "You were not so cold when you were intimate with your sister in the past. Why are you so cold to your sister now? Have you abandoned her after having an affair with her? Are you tired of her?" Obviously, Your sister has been thinking about you all these days since you left Dongzhou. Lan Feiying's sweet and gentle voice, coupled with the affection in her beautiful eyes, is as gentle as water, silently penetrating into the heart, enough to melt even a straight man, not to mention a passionate person like Musian. But Musian still suppressed his anger, and let the beauty in his arms remain motionless, and continued to talk about business. Sister Feiying just said that the will of the creatures in Juzhu was shaken. What's the matter? Lan Feiying smiled charmingly and said faintly, in the past, the cultivators in Juzhu believed that it was natural to abide by the rules of heaven and earth set by the heavenly Dao, but the ascension of the Green Emperor broke the cultivators' cognition. Nowadays, many people in Juzhu have built sculptures of the Green Emperor to worship and pray for good weather and peace in Juzhu. People worship her as a god. The strong incense means that the Green Emperor can get the blessing of the power of all living beings. What do you think the other great masters in the Hedao realm will think? Musian's eyes flickered slightly, and he whispered, will they also want to break the rules of heaven and earth and ascend to heaven? The power of the heavenly Dao comes from the will of the creatures. Once the will of the creatures is shaken and they have the idea of breaking through the shackles of heaven and earth, it will damage the heavenly Dao. Musian understood it slightly in his heart. In fact, there was a big problem with the heavenly Dao in the past. Lan Feiying revealed an unknown truth, and the weapon on her chest kept shaking because of the shaking of the carriage. Musian's eyes flickered. So, the heavenly Dao is not as terrible as I imagined. It had problems with its Dao rhyme because of some things in the past, and then after Sister Kingdi ascended to heaven, its already worn will became even more serious. But what happened to the heavenly Dao in the past? You know, the heavenly Dao is the collection of the wills of the creatures in Juzhu. How can the will of the heavenly Dao be damaged? After a long silence, Musian slightly restrained these thoughts, returned to reality, and asked, how are you and senior sister these days? It was fine when I was in Lianji section. Lan Feiying chuckled. Since we came to the Lan family, although they have never made things difficult for us, my sister and I have not been able to integrate into this family. Musian asked tentatively, then what happened when you were young? Lan Feiying leaned gently on Musian's arm, her voice soft and charming. My sister agreed to go back to the Lan family before, just to send my mother's spirit tablet back to the Lan family during the ancestral worship ceremony, but it seems that it is not so smooth. Musian's eyes revealed a trace of doubt. They don't agree. This is a bit strange. The talents of the Lan sisters are already on the surface. One is the number one genius in Juzhu, and the other is a person chosen by heaven and even has a system. If the Lan family agrees, or if the spirit tablet is included in the family as a condition, so that the two sisters can recognize their ancestors, they may not refuse. The elders of the Lan family are all stubborn. Now they say they are still discussing this matter and need to wait until the discussion is over before they can give an answer. Lan Feiying sneered, if it weren't for my mother's last wish, my sister and I would not even set foot in the Lan family. Musian gently patted Lan Feiying's slender hand, comforting the charming beauty, but a trace of doubt emerged in his heart. For some reason, he always felt that things were not that simple. If the elders of the Lan family are really, as Sister Feiying said, all stubborn, and even the spirit tablets of the deceased are not allowed to enter the gate of the Lan family, then why do they have the nerve to invite Sister Feiying and others to come to the Lan family to recognize their ancestors? Does it mean that they simply think that the power of the Lan family is huge, and Sister Feiying and others will definitely not refuse? But the master of the senior sister is Shang Yanfei, the behemoth who founded the Lianji sect single-handedly. The future senior sister has the blessing of the Lianji section. Even if there is no cultivation resources tilted by the Lan family, it is also a very likely girl of heaven to be in harmony with the Tao. Is it because the elders of the Lan family have been in seclusion for too long and are not well informed, and don't know that the master of the senior sister is the sister of the sect master, or, is there another hidden story? When the thoughts in Musian's mind flashed quickly, he suddenly heard Lan Feiying giggle. Actually, My sister and I didn't have much hope this time, but my mother is his wife. My sister and I want to see what his attitude is, and we also want to know whether my mother has made a mistake over the years. Lan Feiying turned her head to look at Musian and said softly, actually, when my sister fell in love with you, to be honest, I was quite surprised. Musian was stunned. Why? Sister Feiying thinks I'm not good enough. Lan Feiying raised her eyes slightly, glanced at the boy with a charming look, gently touched his forehead with her slender fingers, and said softly, you are a bad boy who is fickle. My sister and I don't like bad boys. She paused, stroking Musian's face, her eyes a little blurred, and whispered, I just don't know when I fell in love with you. When she said the last word, her soft body almost completely pressed against the boy's arms. Sister Feiying, stop it, you don't want to not even see me after this, right? Musian felt the soft and warm fragrance of the beauty in his arms, but felt the dangerous breath emanating from Wei Mengru on the other side. The instinct for survival made him immediately send a message to Lan Feiying. Although Sister Mengru always said that she was just her maid, it was fine if she used this to deceive herself. Musian naturally didn't believe it. Women are jealous, and jealousy will lead to fighting. If it is not handled well, the maid may change from protecting the young master to backstabbing the young master one day. If it really develops into that situation, he will be miserable. Fortunately, Lan Feiying was charming but rational. A trace of tenderness flashed in her eyes, but her voice was full of resentment when she transmitted the message, I know you care about Miss Wei, but why don't you know how to care about me, your sister? Musian's eyes were gentle, and he transmitted the message, Sister Feiying, don't you know my feelings for her? Musian's words can be said to be sincere, after all, he treats every girl sincerely. Lan Feiying stared at Musian with her beautiful eyes, and she couldn't see any joking look in his eyes. He was not perfunctory, but expressed his feelings sincerely. Very rarely, a trace of shame flashed in Lan Feiying's eyes, and she silently withdrew the slender hand that was originally teasing Musian. The bell on her snow-white wrist made a pleasant sound, and she had an inexplicable emotion in her heart. The carriage fell into a brief silence. Wei Mengru looked at this woman who was just unscrupulous with strange eyes, and looked at the young master with suspicion again. What did you say to her just now? She asked in a voice transmission. Musian glanced at the silent Lan Feiying without leaving a trace. She lowered her head. Although she was wearing sexy and mature clothes, her pretty face was flushed, like a well-behaved young lady who was ignorant of the world. Nothing, just let her restrain herself a little, so as not to make Sister Mengru unhappy. Musian secretly held Wei Mengru's little hand and said in a voice transmission. A trace of panic flashed in Wei Mengru's bright and transparent eyes. She wanted to withdraw her hand, but when she thought of Lan Feiying's unscrupulous teasing of her young master just now, she couldn't help feeling sour in her heart, so she kept silent and let him play with her little hand. Then, she leaned slightly and rested her forehead on the young master's shoulder. Buzz. This warm moment did not last long. Soon, the three of them had arrived at the core area of the Lan family. There was a buzzing sound from the formation below, and then, the sonorous voice of the gatekeeper came from the hall not far away. The front is the important place of the Lan family, please stay. The tone of the gatekeeper was very polite. After all, the extremely luxurious chariot under the sky, plus the nine-headed dragon pulling the chariot, was enough to imagine that the identity of the chariot owner must be extremely noble. The Lan family is powerful, but they are unwilling to offend such a noble person at will. Lan Feiying lifted the curtain, glanced at the gatekeeper, and smiled, it's me. It's the young lady. The gatekeeper immediately saluted, and then soon, he looked at the carriage with doubt, hesitantly said, just now I saw that the young lady's carriage didn't seem to be this one, and there seemed to be someone else sitting in it. Lan Feiying glanced at Musian, thinking about how to explain Musian's identity, but immediately saw Musian took out a token from his arms and stuck it out of the curtain. The gatekeeper took a look and was a little surprised, then immediately reacted, quickly put away his weapon, bowed his head and said, "It turns out to be a guest official from the Yokai Holy Land. I'm really sorry to disturb your itinerary just now. Please come in. There are only 10 guests in the Yokai Holy Land, each of whom has an extremely noble status, and the token is engraved with the symbol of Qing Lian, which means that this guest official is invited by the Qing Emperor himself, so they naturally dare not slack off." The carriage drove slowly towards the palace of the Lan clan. On the way, Lan Feiying held her cheek with one hand, looked at Musian meaningfully, and said with a smile, "The Green Emperor actually gave you all the guest tokens of Yaoqi? It is said that after she merged with the Tao, she made less than 3 guest tokens by herself, each of which contained a trace of the breath of the pure world green lotus. Many casual cultivators in the Return to Void realm wanted but could not get it. It can be seen that she really values you. After all, the young master is the Taoist partner of the Green Emperor, and they are actually husband and wife, so naturally she loves him very much." Wei Mengru took over the conversation coldly and glanced at the young master lightly. Obviously, there were signs of a quarrel along the way, but at this moment, the two women suddenly shared a common hatred and suddenly made Musian unable to deal with it, and the pressure in his heart suddenly increased. Musian coughed lightly and changed the subject. "By the way, where is senior sister? Only Sister Feiying came out just now. Is senior sister still busy with something?" Lan Feiying naturally saw that Musian intended to change the subject. She snorted and said, "Sister is waiting for us in Yugzi Pavilion. Let's go find her now." Lan Feiying knew that the Green Emperor would especially favor Musian, but she was still a little dissatisfied. After all, if this big shark wanted to, he could take Musian away at any time and let them never see him again. The reason why the Green Emperor did not do this was not to take them into consideration, but just because he didn't want Musian to be disgusted. "I have to think of a solution with my sister as soon as possible." Lan Feiying lowered her eyes slightly, her fingertips twirling a strand of hair, her eyes flickering slightly. On the other side, Musian saw that the atmosphere had eased slightly, and he was finally relieved for the time being. The guest token that Yao Meng gave him was made by her own hands, which he did not know. He originally thought that the token was brought by Yao Meng from Yaokai. The black-bellied fairy must be declaring her sovereignty in this way. When the senior sister knows about this, I am afraid it will take some trouble again. Musian sighed, put away the token, and was about to close his eyes to relax. At this time, he suddenly heard a vibration coming from the ring in his hand. Musian was stunned for a moment, and then slowly took out the ancient bell from the Fox clan from the ring. The ancient bell was shaking violently in Musian's hand at this moment, making an extremely harsh sound. So, they were the protagonists all along. Author, CCC. Chapter 436. Damn it, who was that person just now? Why could he capture my breath so quickly? I obviously concealed my breath on purpose. A cultivator of the same realm should not be able to capture my breath so easily. Huang Weifeng flew his sword all the way and turned into a stream of light and rushed into an ancient city in the Lan family area. He was lucky enough to escape and was still in shock, gasping for breath. When he gradually calmed down, he was shocked and angry in his heart. He was shocked because he had concealed his breath, but he was still captured by the owner of the carriage. He was angry because he was so cowardly. Facing the young man in the carriage, he actually escaped without hesitation and lost face. Huang Weifeng had just seen another chosen person with the strange man, and he became a little curious and even a little jealous of Musian. He was a time traveler, and his mental power was much stronger than that of ordinary people. He also had the great fortune of heaven. His future was limitless. Naturally, he would look down on the natives of this world. Senior Kylan's previous reminder was indeed correct. The owner of the chariot just now was a little strange. I clearly concealed my breath, but he still noticed it. Huang Weifeng sighed. At this time, a stern reprimand came from the jade slip. So I told you a long time ago that there are people beyond people and heavens beyond heavens. Don't look down on anyone, because you don't know if the other party will pretend to be a pig to eat the tiger. Not only the owner of the chariot, but also the various people you met in the past, and even the disabled villagers you met in the village at the beginning, remember not to despise them. Holy Light Kylin reminded intentionally or unintentionally. Hearing this, Huang Weifeng was a little indifferent and shook his head and said, the owner of this chariot is indeed amazing, but it does not mean that everyone in the world is like him. What's more, I will definitely be able to surpass him in the future. Although his realm is not as good as that of the chariot owner now, he is also a chosen person. Since crossing into this world, he has been blessed by the golden finger of the chosen person. Using this golden finger to the end, it is natural to have many wives and concubines in the future. Chosen people can attract each other. Today, he sensed the breath of heaven emanating from the young lady of the Lan family. Similarly, she must have sensed his existence. Even if he didn't go to find Lan Feiying, they would meet sooner or later. This is fate. No, I really can't leave the Lan family so soon. I can't just give up the opportunity here. Hearing Huang Weifeng's muttering, Sheng Guangkailin was a little annoyed and said, the Lan family in Dongzhou has a prominent status. That woman is not something you can touch. Go and practice well. What beauty can't you get in the future? Senior Kailin is right. So in order to become stronger, you can't miss the opportunity of the Lan family's ancestral worship meeting, right? After saying this, Huang Weifeng no longer paid attention to Sheng Guangkailin's angry scolding, blocked the sound coming from the jade slip, and strode out of the city gate. At this moment, the void behind him began to ripple. The void nightmare opened a strange eye and stared at the direction where Huang Weifeng left. The soul-locking bell actually reacted in this important place of the Blue Clan. Does this mean that the consciousness of the nine-tailed sky fox is hidden in this area? If so, the consciousness of the nine-tailed sky fox may be in a sect here. At the same time, the carriage that Musian was riding was heading towards the main hall of the Lan family. He was playing with the ancient bell in his hand, and countless doubts flashed through his mind at this moment. Wei Mengru's attention was also attracted. When she saw the violent shaking of the ancient bell, her eyes flickered slightly, and she subconsciously glanced at the young master. Her red lips slightly opened, and she was about to say something. At this time, Lan Feiying couldn't help asking, what is this ancient bell in your hand? Why is it so noisy now? Musian gently pressed the soul-locking bell to suppress its sound, and smiled, it's a little thing I accidentally got in the demon world before, Sister Feiying doesn't need to care. Compared to this, what is the purpose of your trip now? Musian asked. When Lan Feiying heard this, the original charm on her face gradually subsided, and turned a little colder, saying lightly, there are three major forces in the Lan family. They are usually consistent with the outside world, but there are often some disputes inside. They haven't discussed a result yet. The two sisters of the Lan family wanted to let their mother's spirit tablet return to the Lan family. However, such a simple condition has been delayed for so long and there is no response. If it weren't for their mother's last wish, the two sisters would not have waited until the ancestral worship meeting began, and they would probably have left. Musian showed a thoughtful look and wanted to continue asking questions, but at this moment, his spiritual consciousness immediately captured a cold woman standing in front of the Holy Land under his feet. That breath was very familiar. Her moon-white long skirt fluttered in the wind, as if accompanied by the moonlight. At this moment, she raised her clear and beautiful eyes and looked up at the sky. Lan Feiying lifted the curtain and took a look, saying, it seems that sister has noticed our presence. Senior sister's mental power is very strong. It's not surprising that she can detect us so quickly. The aura on her body is much stronger than before. Musian smiled and said, diverting the attention of the two girls, then took advantage of the situation to quietly stand up and sit down in the seat opposite the two of them. Small details are full. Although the senior sister knew that Mr. Mew was flirting with other girls outside, this would at least prevent the senior sister from being jealous when she saw him being intimate with other girls later. In this way, she would not use the teleportation talisman to send him to the basement of Lianji Peak one day. Well, according to the calculation of the sect master sister, maybe on the day when he was teleported by the senior sister, he could see the sect master sister waiting in the basement. When Musian was thinking about such things, the carriage was slowly floating down outside the Lan family's main hall. The green lotus ring on Musian's finger was flickering with a faint light for some reason at this moment. In the main hall of the Lan family, many powerful auras gathered here at this moment, and almost everyone was in the return to Void Realm. After the rules of heaven and earth were rewritten, it was not as difficult to refine the spirit and return to the void as it was at the beginning. As for enlightenment, it was no longer impossible to advance. Among these powerful auras, only a middle-aged man did not emit any spiritual fluctuations, but he had the demeanor of a master who was intimidating without anger. Lan Pingzi, the current patriarch of the Lan family and the biological father of the Lan sisters, was halfway to enlightenment. Outside the hall, many young people gathered at this moment. Most of these people were members of the main line of the Lan family, the pride of Dongzhou. They all had a bit of curiosity in their eyes, looking into the hall from time to time, and discussing something with each other. Previously, the statue in the Lan family's ancestral land shook, even startling two living fossils who had been in seclusion for thousands of years. Soon after, several elders gathered together, seemingly discussing something. One was for the unexplained vibration caused by the previous ancestral land of the Lan family, and the other was for this ancestor worship meeting. At this moment, a member of the Lan family rushed in a panic, looking excited. "Why are you so panicked? Don't you see that the elders are still discussing important matters?" Lan Pingzi frowned and asked. The elders next to him did not say anything, and listened to the member continue to say, "The guest from Yaoqi Holy Land came to visit today, and now he is coming here with the two young ladies." The elder of the Lan family raised his pale eyebrows and said, "The guest from Yaoqi Holy Land." The elders present looked at each other, with some doubts in their eyes. There are still some days before the ancestor worship meeting, and the guest from Yaoqi came to the Lan family so early? Since it is a guest from Yaoqi, please invite him to the hall to sit down. Lan Pingzi saw this and immediately said something. Upon hearing this, the tribe member nodded immediately, then hesitated for a moment, looked at the elders, and asked tentatively, "What about the two young ladies?" Lan Feiying and Lan Murian have been out of tune with the Lan family these days, and the elders are somewhat dissatisfied with the attitude of the sisters, but now they actually took the initiative to receive this mysterious Yaoqi guest official. Obviously they know each other. If they are turned away, it will inevitably make the guests think too much. "Please ask them to come together," Lan Pingzi said. Compared to the subtle thoughts of these tribe members, he is more interested in the identity of this Yaoqi guest official. You know, since Lan Murian and Lan Feiying returned to the Lan family, not to mention the elders, even Lan Pingzi, the father, has not paid much attention to them. How could such aloof sisters go to greet each other in person just because a Yaoqi guest official came? Lan Wu, who was standing next to his father, flickered slightly. For some reason, he had a vague premonition in his heart. A quarter of an hour later, in the hall of the Lan family palace, several elders of the Lan family all met this mysterious Yaokai guest. The young clansmen outside the palace were a little curious, secretly looking at the young man who appeared in their field of vision. What is the identity of this young man in a luxurious black robe? Not only is he extremely handsome, but even the maids around him are breathtakingly beautiful, no less than the sisters Lan Murian and Lan Feiying. Musian. When Lan Wu saw the young man who appeared in his field of vision, and the two sisters in the little red skirt and the little white skirt beside him, he almost subconsciously spoke. Musian smiled gently and said, "Uncle, ahem, brother Lan Wu, long time no see." Lan Wu looked strange, and almost couldn't help but pick up a stool to hit Musian's handsome face. "What do you mean by thinking about my two sisters even though you are already married? And even swaggering to my Lan family?" But soon, he restrained these impulses. After all, Musian is here as a guest of Yao Qi, a guest from afar. Lan Pingzi looked at Musian inadvertently. He had obviously heard of Musian's name, but seeing his two daughters standing so intimately beside him, he couldn't help but be a little more vigilant. The elder on the side smiled and said, "So you are the husband of the Green Emperor. I was wondering how someone could be a guest of Yao Qi at such a young age. You are really young and promising." This sounded like a compliment, but it seemed a bit weird, giving people the feeling that Musian was eating gigolo food. Fortunately, Musian didn't care and smiled, "Elder, please forgive me. It's just Yao Meng's love. I know my own weight. If Mu Xiao doesn't have some skills, Senior Kingdi won't take a fancy to you," the elder on the side said with a smile. There was a hint of reminiscence in the eyes of a white-haired old man next to him. "I think that before I started practicing, Fairy Yao Meng was already the empress standing in the world, and the monks who pursued her even lined up from Dongzhou to the edge of the demon world. It's not an exaggeration to say that I can like you now, that's what I'm capable of. Anyway, little friend, please come in and sit down first." The old man made a slight please gesture. Several elders present looked at the old man in surprise. This living fossil was the first-generation elder who had seen the Lan family in its heyday. Normally, no one would pay attention to him, but now he said this when he met Musian. "If you talk too much, you will inevitably be surprised." After a while, Musian followed everyone into the hall. The eldest elder raised his cloudy eyes and said with a smile, "Do you know these two girls from my Lan family?" Musian smiled and nodded. "Senior sister helped me a lot in the past, and Sister Feiying has taken good care of me since I was in Tianqian City, like my biological sister." Lan Mulian glanced at the young man casually. Although his face under the thin veil was still cold, there was a hint of softness between his eyebrows and eyes. Although he knew that Musian was not in a position to intervene in the matter between them and the Blue Clan, seeing the young man willing to stand in front of him made even his coldest heart soften. Of course, it would be better if he didn't smell of Wei Mengru's bomb. From the moment she sat next to him, Lan Mulian smelled a mint-like fragrance from Musian, and Wei Mengru also exuded a similar fragrance. Obviously, the master and the servant probably had a lot of intimacy on their way to Ian's house. The eldest elder of the Lan family had a look of surprise on his face. He glanced at Lan Mulian and the two of them without any trace, and nodded, "No wonder little friend Mu will come to my Lan family. In this case, I will make people entertain little Mu well these days friendly." When he said this, he stood up and motioned to the servant next to him to arrange for Musian to check into the guest room. "Actually, I'm here today because I have one more thing to ask for." Musian looked at the servant coming and suddenly said with a smile. The great elder stared at Musian with his turbid eyes, and heard him continue. "It's about my senior sisters and the others." As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere in the entire hall seemed to become slightly quieter. Sure enough, several elders present showed unexpected expressions. They had already guessed Musian's purpose from the moment Musian said that Lan Mulian and the two had a close relationship with him. At this time, a pleasant voice sounded in the main hall, "If Mr. Mu is a divine gift left by the ancestors after participating in the ancestor worship meeting, then we will naturally welcome it, but in the final analysis, what Mr. Mu mentioned is it's also a family matter of my Lan family. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you as an outsider to intervene." The one who spoke was a beautiful woman in a green skirt. She was sitting not far from Lan Wu at the moment. Her eyebrows were raised and her expression was quite casual. I guess this was her usual personality. After hearing this, the two elders on the side nodded without any trace. This is indeed true. Muzian and Qing Emperor are known as husband and wife, and their status is naturally noble. But this is their Lan family's family matter. What does it matter if you, an outsider, interfere? She is Lan Wan'er, the child of my father, and another woman. Lan Feiying lightly opened her red lips and informed Muzian through sound transmission, but her voice was a little low. In fact, it was indeed inconvenient for Muzian to intervene in this matter, both emotionally and rationally. The two sisters still have the blood of the Lan family flowing in their bodies, and this is a family matter of the Lan family. Not to mention Muzian, even the Liangyi sect is inconvenient to interfere in it. Muzian calmly took a sip of tea and heard Lan Wan'er continue, Mr. Mu has a distinguished status. The misunderstanding between the two sisters and the Lan family was also our family matter. Due to emotion and reason, it's not good for Mr. Mu to interfere in family affairs, right? Even if Senior Qing Emperor knew about it, I'm afraid he wouldn't agree with it. What do you think, Mr. Mu? When Lan Wan'er finished speaking, she looked at Muzian with a smile, but there was always a bit of arrogance in her eyes. As a genius in the clan, one of the people Lan Wan'er looked down upon the most in her life was the pretty boy who was just a fool. Lan Mulian frowned slightly. It was okay just to target them, but it was different when it came to Muzian. However, before she could say anything, Muzian, who was sipping tea with his eyes lowered, suddenly smiled. I have heard Senior Sister and Sister Feiying talk about the Lan clan thing. What Miss Wan'er said is right and reasonable. If I were an outsider, it would naturally be inconvenient for me to mention it, let alone its intervention. The moment the words fell, Lan Feiying fell silent slightly. Lan Mulian's eyes flickered, and she glanced at him secretly. For some reason, she always felt that her junior brother was not someone who would compromise so easily. Seeing this, Lan Wan'er raised her eyebrows slightly, and then a faint smile appeared on her face. Several girls from the tribe sitting next to her also couldn't help but chuckle. There is no reason for an outsider to come and interfere in other people's family affairs. Although Muzian looks handsome, he doesn't know what is going on in his mind. The elder saw this, his eyebrows and eyes were full of satisfaction, but his tone was extremely stern. You kids are getting more and more bold, you dare to be so rude to Master Mu, go back to your room and reflect on your mistakes for half a month. Yes. The young girl and the young man next to him lowered their eyebrows and listened obediently, looking well behaved. This punishment was not painful at all. On the surface, it was a reprimand, but in fact it was protecting them. Master Mu, I'm so sorry. These young people in my Lan family rarely go out, so they are not very sensible. I will ask someone to discipline them well. Girls are more fickle. Wan'er will definitely change her attitude towards Master Mu in the future, the elder said gently. Lan Wu frowned slightly. He naturally saw that the elder was intentionally suppressing Muzian's arrogance, but the elder did not take action, but used several girls in the tribe to complete the step. Muzian couldn't get angry in order to show his tolerance. But this is too offensive. Muzian is a guest of the Lan family as a guest of Yaokai, and he is also the Taoist partner of the Green Emperor. If he whispers in the ear of the Green Emperor in the future, no matter how powerful the Lan family is, it can't stand the turmoil. Seeing this, the elder said to the servant beside him, why don't you take Master Mu to the guest room to rest? Do these people really think I'm a fool? Muzian looked at the Lan family members in the hall with a playful look. Most of them remained silent, and many people even had good intentions towards him, but they didn't show it too obviously. Looking at the attendants who were about to come, Muzian said lightly, what the elders and even Miss Wan'er said just now is very true. Mu naturally agrees with you. As an outsider, it is indeed not convenient to talk about your family affairs. The elder frowned slightly and heard the subtext of Musian's words. For some reason, he always had a bad premonition in his heart. Lan Wu's eyes also flickered slightly, as if he thought of something, and he suddenly raised his head and looked at Musian in disbelief. Musian paused and smiled, but if it is in the name of their Taoist partners, this is Mu's family business, right? Taoist partner? He called himself the Taoist partner of Lan Murian and Lan Feiying? In the hall, everyone's eyes widened slightly when they heard this. The disciples of the clan also breathed sluggishly, staring at Musian in a daze, and once suspected that he was crazy. It took a long time for Lan Wan'er to wake up. She raised her eyebrows and said, "Mr. Mu's words are interesting. Everyone in Zhuzhou knows that Mr. Mu's Taoist partner is Qingdi. How can it be related to my two sisters now?" However, seeing that the two sisters did not say anything, she couldn't help but feel a little weird. Could it be that what he said was true? Musian looked around at everyone and said with a smile, "I'm afraid that the elders present, even the head of the Lan clan, have more than one Taoist partner, right? Even if I have 2 or 3 Taoist partners, it's not strange, right?" Lan Wan'er frowned slightly and said, "My 2 sisters are extremely talented and have a high vision. How could they choose a man who already has a wife as a Taoist partner?" "Miss Wan'er, do you think my conditions are not good?" Musian asked with a smile. To be fair, Musian is excellent in both appearance and talent, but for the sake of face, Lan Wan'er still hummed and was about to speak. However, the moment she raised her head, she happened to see Musian's eyes. In the dark eyes, there was a faint pink light, accompanied by a sweet and extremely charming aura. Dong dong. For some reason, Lan Wan'er's heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and the look that originally showed a little contempt suddenly stagnated, and her beautiful eyes were obsessed. At the same time, the granddaughters of several elders in the Lan family blushed and looked flustered. They shyly and flusteredly lowered their heads to tidy up their hair, and suddenly they were concerned about their image. Even the female disciples outside the hall had a strange look in their eyes, staring straight at Musian. "What do you think, Miss Wan'er?" Musian asked softly. Under the stunned eyes of the elders, the previously unruly girl blushed and hesitantly said, "Mr. Mu is very good, and he is naturally worthy of me and my 2 sisters. Then Miss Wan'er thinks this is our family affair. That's natural." Facing the charming aura exuded by Musian at this moment, the cheeks of several girls in the clan became hot, and Lan Wan'er's voice suddenly became hesitant. "It seems that what the elder said is indeed true. Girls are indeed fickle creatures." Musian looked at the speechless elder and smiled as brightly as the sun. In the hall, there was no sound at all. Lan Murian's icy face was flushed. She didn't expect Musian to dare to say such shameless words in front of her father, so that her crystal earlobes were a little hot. But along with it, she was shocked in her heart. The heavenly destiny saint body could see the origin, so she naturally saw how tempting the charming aura Musian just exuded was. Not to mention Lan Wan'er, a girl who had just practiced for a short time, even she, who was in the Return to Void realm, was inexplicably moved and had the urge to snuggle in his arms. Lan Feiying also couldn't help but secretly glance at Musian, and her beautiful eyes, which used to be charming and mature, also flashed with shame. Although she and her sister had been intimate with Musian before, it was inevitable that she felt ashamed to say in front of the tribe that the 2 sisters were his Taoist companions. Wouldn't this guy feel embarrassed to say this? For a moment, the hall was silent for an unknown length of time. Lan Pingzi's fists hidden in his cuffs were quietly clenched. If he hadn't been trying to avoid losing his composure, he might have been tempted to take action. Lan Mulian and Lan Feiying are also his children. Now, the 2 big cabbages have been stolen by someone without anyone noticing, and the other party just got married to Qing Emperor not long ago. If they really marry Mu in the future, if Jian is together, won't he be suppressed and bullied by Qing Emperor every day? The hall had been silent for an unknown amount of time before an old voice slowly sounded from the mouth of the great elder. "Young friend, Mu is really a good trick. I'm afraid this kind of charm method is not unique to Dongzhou, right?" Several other heads of the Lan family on the side also stared at Muzian, realizing that what he had just used was magic. Using the magic of the demon world to confuse people's hearts in the Lan family, does this mean they are completely ignored? This is indeed not the method of Dongzhou, but Yao Meng often told me before that there is no distinction between good and evil in the so-called skills, as long as they are used properly, Muzian said with a nonchalant smile. These people present are all high-level officials in Dongzhou. He doesn't know whether they are privately involved with demon cultivators in the demon world, but they must have had contact with them at one time or another. He was not worried that these people would be as stupid as Ye Yu and made a big fuss about the demon cultivators. Everyone is smart and knows that this kind of thing can't hurt him at all. It's just that they previously wanted to use Junior to suppress themselves, and Muzian also used Junior to counterattack them in a small way. However, it seems that it is unrealistic to just deal with the matter between the senior sisters and the Lan family today. While living in the Lan family these days, I'm afraid I have to find out more about what happened between them and the Lan family in order to take the right medicine. Moreover, the soul-locking bell used to search for the nine-tailed sky fox will react in the Lan family's important territory, which makes people a little concerned. Thinking of this, Muzian glanced at the hall that had fallen into silence at this time, and was about to speak at the right time to break the silence. At this time, he suddenly felt a clear light flashing in front of his eyes. Muzian was stunned for a moment, and the smile on his face faded a little. Then, he felt a familiar and warm atmosphere silently envelope the hall. He finally reacted and suddenly looked down at the green lotus ring on his finger. At this moment, the green lotus ring was actually emitting an extremely soft light. Almost at this moment, several elders in the hall and even the two living fossil old men and the head of the Lan family woke up instantly, their eyes suddenly fixed on Muzian's green lotus ring. The next moment, from the clear light, a vast will like the sea descended. The phantom of a woman in a green skirt appeared in the hall. Her body was surrounded by the brilliance of the moonlight, and all she could see was a graceful figure and a pair of beautiful green eyes that seemed as indifferent as pity for the world. Senior Kingdi. Several elders reacted almost immediately, stood up one after another, raised their hands and bowed. Meet the fairy. All the tribesmen also reacted in the same way, and quickly raised their hands to bow, lowering their heads in a respectful manner. Lan Mulian looked at the scene and couldn't help but frown secretly, but in front of the tribe, he could only act respectfully. Although the Qing emperor looked vaguely like a fairy at the moment, she knew how bad this fairy's true character was. Muzian obviously hadn't come to his senses yet, but the indifferent smile on his face was gone. He blinked and looked at Yao Meng blankly. How is that possible? Didn't she go to southern wasteland? At this moment, Muzian thought of many things. The moment he saw Yao Meng, he first thought of what happened with his teacher Zixuan in the demon world. Fortunately, Muzian is a mature fish pond owner and can barely maintain his usual calmness. But the surprise in his eyes could not be concealed. As if aware of the young man's eyes, Yao Meng glanced slightly sideways, with a trace of teasing in his clear and beautiful eyes that were originally pity for the world, and said softly, "Don't be so surprised. In order to ensure your safety, I gave you the Qing dynasty. There is a ray of my spiritual consciousness sleeping in the lotus ring. As long as you inject a ray of spiritual energy when you are in danger, the sleeping spiritual consciousness will wake up." Muzian hesitated and said, "But I remember that I never injected spiritual energy into the Qinglian ring." "Other people's spiritual energy can also revive me," Yao Meng reminded lightly. Muzian was stunned for a moment, then as if he thought of something, he gently wiped the green lotus ring with his fingertips, and his thumb was immediately stained with a little rouge. Extremely coquettish. Looking at the people who all had their heads lowered, Yao Meng raised the corners of his mouth slightly, landed in front of Musian, and leaned close to Musian's ear, and his soft voice sounded in his ear. How does it feel to be the queen of the demon world? 8K is over today, please cast your vote.